film right outside of Fort Benning.
And what were you filming?
It's a movie called Razor's Edge. It's like a military thriller. James Franco's like a ranger back in the States and helping to solve like a murder. Me and a couple of ranger bad guys were just like playing op four. You know what I mean? It's actually pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that is cool, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's a good way to get started. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
But after being in it, I was like, oh, this is fucking legit. Like, so I'm like, you know
Silence your
what?
text messages, dickhead. That was me. That
Yeah,
was a trap. I'm gonna text all of y'all. Make sure all y'all shits off.
it's a trap. So now that I've experienced it, I was like, dude, I'm gonna fucking take some acting lessons. I'm gonna give this 110% because there's a lot of. And I spoke to a couple of people, and they were like, "Well, yeah, as a military guy, especially in special operations, we've done like the NTC, the GRTC, we've done the role
Yeah.
play, we've done the level 3 course, and we already know the tactics. That's the
Yeah.
biggest thing is we already know how to essentially plan and lead on
Yeah.
the battlefield. So it's technically not acting if we're
Not big.
doing.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
how I kind of started out as well. The same thing. Just got in a few shows and then, started doing some acting. I was and all that. And so went into theater and actually did some acting at UCLA and then out in LA for a bit. But it's really cool. I think it helps you to explore kind of the human element of everything too.
Yeah, yeah. So are you still doing it, Ben, or
Yeah.
did you stop?
Yeah, I mean, I still do a bit, I still do some of it. But in business, I'm so busy right now. But I'm not definitely not opposed to jumping back in and um, you know, kind of diving into it again. But it's definitely fun. It's definitely a good time, just exploring roles and doing all that stuff.
What was
But
your favorite theater production?
that I've been in or seen.
Yeah, no, that you've been in. We'll
Uh,
do both. What the one that you've been
yeah,
in first?
gosh, I mean, I like Shakespeare a lot. I
Sure.
enjoy that. I was in the Enchanted up in Carmel Theater, Carmel by the Sea. That was really cool. It was a cool experience. And then I think probably Hamlet's always really cool to see, uh, auditioned for that back in the day. Got down to the wire. It was a pretty big production to get the lead role. And they're like, well, you haven't been doing as long as the other guy. We're gonna give it to the other guy. And I was like, all right, cool. I bounced. Then they're like, you want another role? No.
No,
I
that's
look
it.
back, I'm
I
like,
had
something
no
so
plan
stupid.
B.
I probably should have taken the other role just for the
Right.
experience.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
to get in
But
there. But
it's
you were
just
like,
kind
nah,
of,
man,
but you
I
know,
have
it is though
standards.
too. For me, it's like looking for that thrill level, that we were used to having and getting up on stage the first time, doing a monologue in front of like a bunch of people, like working actors. I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I can get that. I get kind of that rush. And so I don't know, that was fun.
Ben,
Yeah, man.
Ben, that corporate policy stuff you just gave us, no one's buying it. Okay, Ben? I'm going to tell you exactly why Ben does TV and commercials and takes his shirt off. It's called groupies. Groupies are awesome. Don't get it twisted.
Don't listen to him.
Listen, let me tell you something.
I love this.
Groupies are the best part of the TV business.
Oh, I'm gonna get blown up now. I'm gonna get blown
You are,
up.
yeah, absolutely not. I want to make a quick disclaimer. Anybody that speaks on this podcast speaks on their own volition and and under their own
Hey,
penalty and risk assessment. Just saying
absolutely.
that.
And
Hey,
so,
Ben
hey,
didn't say that.
Jay,
Jake
in the
said that.
TV world, we're literally just waiting for Travis to pop. Travis Lively got like 10 movies. He's working, trying to finalize one that me and Ben are going to get to go play, and you get to. We bring everybody, bro. We're going to have carte blanche to bring everybody we want because it's the Zembeck story. So the
Oh,
Marine Corps
nice.
is
Yeah,
involved, like.
it's fantastic.
So
Yeah.
we need
Nice.
some stuff to pop, man. And as soon as it pops for him, we all get to party because there's not enough of us to go around, and there's enough groupies to go around.
That's not from me, from Jake.
You had us until the
Oh
very end.
man.
You were like that meme. Oh, you had us in the first half.
You're
No,
in,
everybody
bro.
was agreeing with you till the very
That's the
last
whole
sentence there.
thing. Like, so you guys know Remy's story, right? Like Remy got asked to be an advisor. He did the Navy SEAL movie. He got asked to be an advisor. Next thing you know, he's doing Transformers, asked to be an advisor. Next thing, him and Michael Bay are butt buddies. And then Michael Bay is just like, look, man, I'm gonna turn you into a real dude. And so
That's
like
crazy.
cast him in like 3 or 4 films, put him in a talking role in Transformers. And I mean, now that dude's got his own production company. The Navy paid him like $500,000 to do the little Remy Remy story, which he killed. I mean, it's just TV, man. It's just
Yeah.
TV.
Respect the
Nice.
game. I'm not mad at it.
No, not at all. We all live, by the way, guys. So.
Oh, cool. Hey, how are you doing?
Dude,
I haven't
let's
said a
go.
single
Let's
cuss word
go.
yet. This is the new kindler, gentler me. I can't get shadow banned no more. So I'm going politically correct. The
You are
context
not.
of what I say may not be politically correct, but the way I say it will not involve vulgar language and homophobic
This is the
saying.
new. This is the new refined Jake. He's
Yep.
gonna get some
It's the new, and guess what? We just
teleprompter.
lost every follower because that is so
Right.
fake coming out of him. He had like that
Yeah,
is such
he's
a
the
lie.
talent. We've been told that. So
I know. Yeah,
Jake is the talent. We're just supporting and teeing him up.
that's
He just
100%.
He just
Yeah.
looks out of his element. All right, let's kick this one off with a self-improvement question to give, Ben some time to shine, followed by everyone else. All right, so this one, well, for starters, folks, welcome to the live edition of the War Room. We're gonna start doing these shows live now because it gives us a chance to interact with you guys, the audience. You can ask questions in the chat section, guys. If you donate to the cause, your question will move to the top of the list, right? So we just got monetized, so that's one option that we do have now. So if you have any questions for us, military related, self-improvement stuff, right? Parenting questions, like the sky's the limit. Between the four of us, we have enough experience to hopefully guide you down that path, right? So with all that said, guys, if you have questions, please throw it in the comment. Not the comment, but the chat section, and we'll get to it for you as soon as we can. So here's the question, guys. This one revolves around ethical dilemmas, right? So have you ever encountered a ethical dilemma during your time downrange or your time in the military? How did you navigate those situations, and what advice would you give to others that might face a similar situation? All right, and we'll kick this one up with you, Ben, and then we'll just circle the wagon.
Oh man, that's boy, this goes down a lot of different roads. But I mean, I'll just go start off with like a basic framework. I think, one of the big ethical dilemmas is truth versus loyalty, and both things are correct, right? Both things are good, but at some point, you have to be able to choose which one is right. Like you're following what the letter of the law is and what is the best for the unit or best for the group and what's just and then or being loyal is good as well too, so I think this is something like you've got to go through vignettes and talk about with people ahead of time. Like, I mean, no matter who's out there listening, if you're a leader out there, and I think we're all leaders in some way, shape, or form, but you've got to talk through some of these things so that when it hits you and it comes to you, you're not just you're not flying by the seat of your pants and making a hasty emotional decision on, you throw somebody under the bus that maybe you shouldn't have, right? Because you didn't investigate it enough, or you clam up and don't say anything, and because you're trying to be loyal. So these are some serious issues, especially downrange, as we know, when kinetic things start happening. But I think, me personally, I think you always have to give the benefit of the doubt to the service member, to the Marine in my case, and go from there. So I mean, so that way you are in the middle of the ethical dilemma, and you're looking at loyalty. You're being loyal within the system and within the brotherhood, but then also I think you're adhering to truth and justice and those things as well too. It's not easy. And I'm not going to specific cases because I think there's a lot too much there right now, honestly. You guys anyone take a stab at it?
All right, real quick, I'll tell you about the ethical dilemma that I had in college. Ben was probably there with me. So we had a football house, and it was off the chain. Okay, so if you at the Naval Academy, there's no place to go, there's nothing to do. The class of '94 was a bunch of pirates. So if I consider myself a pirate, they had 15 of me's in the class of '94. All but like 3 of them got kicked out on the Double E scandal. It was the biggest tragedy in the history of Naval Academy. It was a complete sham show. So anyway, we're at the football house, and Ty Rennick, I'm going to say Ty Rennick, Gibber threw a log across the fire, hit Ty Rennick in the head. They got in a fight. They went through this glass door. Ty Rennick lacerated his kidney from the back with this glass. And so
Yeah.
Like I was there, I don't drink, right? And I'm a year younger, and I'm just like, man, what are we doing? Like, what are you doing? So Jibber was trash, right? So they were drunk. And so anyway, long story short, I probably shouldn't have said his name. No one knows who he is, but we roll. So I take Ty Rennick. No, it was Max Lane. It was Max Lane that got his kidney lacerated. And
No, I don't think so. I don't. Was it Max? I don't think so.
Max threw the log and hit Ty Rennick.
I think it was Gibber. I think that was Gibber.
Yeah.
Max, I'm
Gibber threw the log.
protecting you.
Okay, so one of them threw this log. Long story short, I take him to the hospital. He's got a blood clot on his back this big. I remember it was on his jeans and his he had a huge cut. So anyway, long story short, I get back to the house. It's now like 3 a.m. I'm exhausted. There was these dirty ass couches upstairs. So I climb upstairs. And I hear this girl in this room like, stop, no. She's not screaming, but she's like, no, stop. So I kind of cracked the door, and one of our football players who's drunk as shit is in there, and he's trying to sleep with her. So I'm just kind of like, all right, I shut the door. I'm like, all right, whatever. So then she's like, please don't do it. Don't do it. So I'm like, oh, man. So I open the door and I go in there. I turn the lights on, and so is there with his little wee wee, like his little wee wee drunk, okay?
And the slander, the extra slander is just it's the cherry
big,
on top for me.
This big, no lie, this big.
It's why you're different, Jake.
And I was
That's
just like,
why.
hey,
it's
man.
because you had a chance to be petty and you absolutely took it, and I'm here for it. You know,
Right,
if Kendrick Lamar taught us we're not hating hard enough, I think. Continue.
I'm in the room, okay, and the girl is like, oh my God, she's butt naked in the bed. And like, I was like, are you okay? She's like, I'm okay. I'm like, so why are you screaming stop and no? She's like, well, he's just really heavy and he's laying on top of me. And I'm like, do you want it to stop? And she's like, he's drunk. He can't get hard. I don't think anything's going to happen. I'm like, all right, I'm going to leave the room and I'm not coming back because I gave you an opportunity, but I'm just telling you, like, dude's a caveman. Okay. So the next day, and the moral of the story is the next day he tried to call me out at practice. Like, I think we were in spring ball. And he tried to call me out, and I let him have it, bro. I let him have it. Like, I blew his head off, and I said, listen, you take that thing right there, and I said, next time you get drunk and you try to force yourself on a woman, and you think I'm going to be outside and just allow it to happen, I said, you should be thanking me because you would have went to prison if somebody else would have been there and took action. And I said, you were being a complete idiot. And everybody looked at him and was like, oh, yeah, you were being an idiot. And so it's just one of them situations. I'm not trying to sound chivalrous. I just was in a situation where, this is one of my teammates at the Naval Academy, and like we all stuck together. Obviously, I didn't turn him in for nothing. Like, I'm not going to report him. I just made sure the situation was safe. But the next day, it turned into a moral dilemma because everybody tried to get on me a little bit, but I shut it down. Like I tell everybody, with responsibility comes big shoulders. Like sometimes you got to do stuff that ain't popular and people don't like it.
Well, and I've said this before, kind of talking to other young men and women that are getting into this. Like, it's hard to lead on the teams because you immediately get into these gray areas, right? Well, like when you talk about, it takes a lot of study into actually figuring out how to solve problems and like understanding what's going on in front of you. And there's a lot of gray area. It's never black and white. And the more the more you lead on teams, or the more you've been on teams with guys, like that gray area becomes like bigger and bigger and bigger. And it really highlights the question of like, there's an evil bigger in the world than just evil itself, and that's the inaction of good men, right? So it's, do I intervene here? Am I morally, am I bound by my own standards and morals to interact here? Like, this isn't specific to anybody, but you're telling me nobody here on the screen has ever been TDY with a married dude. They watch them leave with a chick, and you're like, hey, that's not right. Right. How many guys on the team like pulled him aside and go, hey, bro, like, I see where this is going. Like, these drinks are going down a little bit too fast, and we're staying out a little bit too late, and there's nothing good that's going to come up. We should probably bounce. Right. You know how hard it is to have that conversation with one of your best friends, to look at him and be like, hey, man, you're about to fuck up, and I say that as a guy that's fucked that up. Like, I'm not throwing any stones in a glass house that I live in, because I'll tell you what, like, I'll be as honest as anybody wants. But man, I'll tell you what, those things are hard. And if you apply that, Ben, I can't imagine. I make fun of officers all the time because you guys are useless, but you do have a lot of responsibility, man. Like, and to bear that moral weight, to have to look at somebody and go, hey man, I love you, but you fucked up and you crossed the line that I can't let you cross. And, we have to have a different conversation now. And I've been blessed to have officers like, this is going to come as no shock to anybody here, but I've been on the wrong side of that counseling desk a time or two. And I've had good friends. One of them called me this morning. He's like, hey man, I love this comment. Like we bullshit. He's a colonel. He's going to be in for 40 years. Like the guy's an amazing story. But he's one of those dudes that's had me down. It's like, hey man, I love you, and this has nothing to do with you and my personal relationship, but you cross the line, I got to call you on it. Like, hey, send it.
That's
But you find yourself in those dilemmas a lot. Like that weight is a lot, and it's never black and white. It's always a gray area. And whether it's watching your friend doing something, morally questionable, whether it's true crime, like there's been times where people that you work with really do, like we had a PJ quite famously like selling gear, like taking it from supply and then selling it, and he got caught doing it. Like, I'm sorry, but that's you sold a radio, bro. That's a federal crime. You're gonna have to talk to the feds about that. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. But Ben, how did you personally bear that weight? Because I'm interested to hear from the other side of the desk. Like, I know how it felt to feel it, but what did you feel in those moments?
I mean, that's why I can't access my memories, because they're all compartmentalized. So that's how I bear the
Fair.
weight. No,
Fair.
no, I mean, like what this, and I'll just hopefully I'll talk through a few vignettes, and maybe that will illuminate some things. But yeah, it definitely sticks with you. I think I don't always want to go down this road, but like some combat stuff, just when you are initiating sniper activity, initiating an ambush, making drops. I mean, all you guys are familiar with this. I mean, I think that you have a lot of things you have to go through. You have to look at is this the right time to use this type of force? And I'm speaking very sterilely for everyone. This is like a very rapid, right? It's very rapid under duress. It's crazy time, but you have to war game these things ahead of time. You have to meet, talk in detail about them. You have to be prepared to be able to make that decision in 30 seconds, and something you've considered for a long, long time. And I think it's never as clean as you think it is, and it does stick with you. And so this is some practice that we did that I thought was very useful, was kind of some validation of combat actions afterwards, talking through with shooters, having a team meeting afterwards, talking through with shooters about, okay, this was the right move. You did the right thing. I made that call. Like, I'm taking responsibility. I'm buying all the bullets on this, right? And so you have to know that you're good. And we would sit around and look at each other, and everyone would come by and get very real about what just happened, and whether it's an extended operation or short, quick, direct action, and just make sure that the shooters were they were good afterwards. And so sometimes I'd come back from something, and you'd get confronted with just being real, being confronted with kind of the stink eye sometimes, like, did you guys do the right thing? And I'm like, that's very hard. And I think that puts more probably seeds of PTSD into people, whether you're a shooter, you're a commander, whatever it is, than maybe even other things. So it's
It just makes you so cynical, like so quickly.
Oh my God, man.
Because like you it's just like the ride back is supposed to be fun. This is a very specific thing to talk about, but you guys can get it. But like, that ride back after a mission or after a successful operation, like, is supposed to be a time where you decompress, you talk to your boys, like things lighten up a little bit. Like, you're still on guard, but you're happy to be getting back home. Like, that ride to base is supposed to be something good. And I distinctly remember a deployment where every ride back to base, literally, I was just getting ready for a knife fight. Every time I got off the helicopter, it was just like, okay, well, what Bob am I going to have to talk to about? He heard some radio traffic he didn't like, or he saw an ISR feed. One of my guys had short sleeves on, which is a real story. Like, hey man, is this what we're talking? My guys are covered in blood right now. Can you let them go? Just like put their stuff in the team room before you yell at them about their dirty uniforms. Like, that stuff happens.
I was lucky to have a very good direct commander over me, and not saying names, but very successful, very good, very hard nosed, and that definitely kept the umbrella over us a lot. It was outside, how it is. It's always outside the unit that you experience things. But yeah, I think that definitely sticks with you. Decisions you make definitely will stick with you, and you've got to do your best to say that this is the best call I can make right now. And like you said, inaction is the worst thing, but sometimes having tactical patience and choosing to let the situation develop more, as long as it's a choice and you're not paralyzed from fear, then I think that's an option as well too. If you make this decision, say, we're exercising tactical patience, going to further develop the situation, and then go from there. But obviously not freezing. That's never good.
Yeah, and all these points are valid. Throughout my time in the military, I found that as long as you're a respectable leader, that typically helps with those hard conversations. So if you have to have a conversation with your subordinate and they respect you, they look up to you and they welcome your advice, and you pull them up to the side and sit them down and you tell them, hey man, like you're about to fuck up. Like what you did was wrong, or what you're about to do is wrong. Like they tend to be a lot more receptive, as if you were someone that they don't respect, or somebody that has double standards, right? You're telling them to do one thing but you're doing the other, right? So throughout my time, I find that like that typically helps a lot whenever it's time to have those hard conversations. So if you're a leader out there, again, prioritize your men, take care of them, and then the mission will take care of itself. And when you do have feedback for them, they'll be a lot more receptive to whatever you have to say if you are the actual example, right? So awesome feedback, fellas. Let's jump right into the first story. So sticking along the lines of moral dilemmas, I don't know if you guys saw this one, but a Arizona woman was caught on camera pouring bleach into her husband's coffee. Her husband's in the Air Force, by the way. So
it's always, I swear, like I don't know what it's been lately. There's been this rash. It's always the Air Force. Anytime I see like, oh, service member does something wild, I'm just like, it was the Air Force, wasn't it? And then I open the story up, lo and behold, Air Force. Of course it
yeah,
was.
so they were stationed in Germany, and this guy noticed that his coffee was a little funky, right? So he continued drinking the coffee for 3 weeks.
Weeks. Like this, first of all, the guy's name's Robbie. I just want to put it out there. It's like Roby. I had to like go search, like I'm doing show prep, right? So I had to go search some video where they pronounce the people's names because I'm terrible at it. So Robbie and Michelle, but it's Roby. I was like, Roby, like Toby from The Office with an R. And then I realized I was a fucking idiot. I was like,
hey,
that's
that
not how
doesn't
you
justify getting bleach poured his coffee, all right? Like that
it
doesn't
doesn't, yeah, but
justify that.
it also doesn't justify him drinking it for 3 weeks, homie. Come on, you
Yeah.
3 weeks. Well, I will
She
say
was
I
there
was in the
for
military.
3 weeks. That's
Well,
insane.
I was in the military for 22 years, so I've done shit I don't like for a long time, I guess. So
So he drank the coffee for 3 weeks before he went out and got some test strips and actually test the coffee. Once he tested it, he noticed that, hey, my wife is pouring bleach in my coffee, right? He didn't report it to the authorities because they were in Europe. So he waited till he got to Arizona on US soil, and then he set up this thing where he had a camera set up, and he caught her, and this video is going around too. He caught her waking up, with a towel or whatever, and then pouring bleach into his coffee and then walking off, right?
So she's like, honey, I'm bringing you your coffee every day. And he's like, this is pretty great, man.
Boy,
This is awesome.
she's,
Like, damn right, she should get my coffee.
Yeah,
she's being
now
so nice to me. Wow, this is great. Boy, this marriage is going great.
That's when you got to watch it, when it's getting
yeah,
It's getting too good.
especially if you're going through a divorce. So they were going through a divorce, and he thinks that she was doing it so they can get, so she can get his life insurance money.
100%.
Now
So
she
contentious
did get,
divorce. Things were not going well. They were living under the same roof in Germany.
yeah. Now
Classic.
she did get caught doing this, and she went to court. She was charged with attempted murder, first degree, and her sentence was probation and then mental health counseling. Right, Jake? What's your thought on this, Jake?
So this goes into the like, and I'm not banging on the enlisted dudes, right? This is the E3 that goes and buys the $80,000 Nissan Tercel with 200,000 miles on it, right?
That Dodge Charger, I got it at 24% interest. It was a great deal.
24% interest, right? I just want to, can we please get a little bit of education on here and use antifreeze so at least we cause kidney failure and kill them? Like, golly, what is, all right, I'm going to ask Aaron a question. Aaron is Aaron's the medical experienced guy on this channel. Aaron, does bleach actually have any chance of killing you in a dosage small enough in a coffee cup, other than killing all the bacteria in your stomach? Like, there's no chance it kills you.
No, you'd have to drink a shit ton of it, and that's more like it's corrosive as it goes down. It hurt. Yeah, there's no reason to slowly dose somebody. You're not going to build up like some sort of chlorine tolerance or whatever. Yeah, yes, you're right. The amount she was using is ridiculous. It's not the way to kill somebody with bleach. I agree. I can't believe it.
Yeah, like she should have just put dog poop in his coffee or something. Like it got some like sanitary win out the deal.
Why would that kill him? She was trying to kill him.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm saying at least then it would be funny, right?
Oh.
Like she fed him dog poop for 3 weeks. Like
I guess it would be funny.
I think this was stupid. Stupid. This is up there on the dumbass E3 E01 E3 list on the board where you look over and you're like, oh my God, someone really did that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Like that's all I gotta say.
That's nuts. That's just crazy.
So she ends up poisoning. Yeah, she ends up poisoning his coffee. They go through this entire thing. He puts up hidden cameras. Like this is how he ends up catching her, right? So the second he puts up all these cameras, he catches her like 5 times, and it's hilarious. Like I urge you to go look this thing up because the verbiage in all of these news stories, you're like, who wrote this? Like this is just. It looks like a lie on paper. They're like, oh yeah, she was seen pouring a mysterious liquid into the coffee maker. She has a bottle. It's like the Clorox bleach bottle, and she's looking over her shoulder because she's like making sure that he doesn't walk in the room. No, she doesn't want him to walk in the room because it's like his coffee. So she's like, but she's looking right at the line of the camera with this bleach
let's talk
bottle.
about mission prep here, though. She she didn't prep her charges, right?
She did not.
Nothing was ready to go, right? Still has on the grenade spoon, everything still has the
right.
That's bent. Nothing's
not
ready.
Taped. It's not ready. It's not preloaded.
She's got the whole damn bleach bottle. Why not like a clear something? So we got to think mission prep here, people. I don't know what's going on there.
It's when a young teammate shows up on a TDY or on a deployment and he pulls something out of plastic and be like, you brand new motherfucker. You're telling me you're pulling so you would just make fun of him. But like, yeah, so she does this. She gets caught on camera. It's quite obvious that she is doing this. And the guy ends up calling the police. She gets initially charged. She was held. They didn't know what they were going to charge her with. The story evolves. And she's going to get charged with attempted murder. So because she was trying to kill him to take the money, they're going through a contentious divorce. There was a child involved. She wanted to obviously get all of them sweet military benefits and death gratuities and all that other stuff. That's what the allegation was. Guess what? 13 May, 15 May, around 2024 this year. 3 years probation, no jail time.
That's wild.
For attempted murder.
California.
Dude,
I know it's Arizona. It's Arizona, but it's Arizona's California. It's California.
It was absolutely unbelievable. I just cannot believe that the intent there was to kill him. And throughout the entire trial, that's what they argued, right? And I think it was her lawyer came up with some sort of soundbite was, saying, hey, you're going to have to prove that her intent was to kill him. Like, okay, yeah, it wasn't the smartest way to do it. It wasn't the most efficient way to do it, but the intent behind it was to harm or kill this person. Right. Like that's plainly obvious why you pour somebody, put bleach in somebody's coffee. Like you were trying to harm.
Linked up with Jake, it would have been in a freeze,
I don't even want to say the thoughts that I have would have been more effective because I don't want to give people ideas, But
exactly, Jake doesn't mind. Jake's like, hey, here's how
I don't want to be the one.
Yeah, it's Google, bro. Like, come on, man. Like, I go to ChatGPT. They probably won't tell me the answer, but I go to Google. Give me the 3 substances I can put in somebody's coffee to help them go away, right? And we're not even talking about the good stuff, Ben. We're not talking about the good stuff.
I built up a tolerance to ibogaine powder, so I am immune. Inconceivable. It's a Princess Bride reference. I can't believe the sentence was just nothing. Just 3 years probation. Just like, hey, we're going to keep our eye on you. That was It
was a non-violent crime, Aaron. Why we don't have to? She's not a threat to society. It's non-violent.
Right. Well, there was some reporting also, so I'm gonna hit Robbie on this one. So Staff Sergeant Robbie, whoever, so he actually advocated that he didn't actually want anything bad to happen to her. That he wanted to be her things to be lenient on her throughout the entire process. So that's that dude. Just probably still, every once in a while they're getting divorced, but every couple of weeks, there's like they both have a little bit of wine in the house, and
can you imagine like from the point where he found out to the point where he decided to fucking turn her in? They're probably still, dude. They're probably still doing the fucking deed. He was probably
that's what I'm saying. That's why it took so long. He was he waited until things weren't good, and then he was like, you know what, I got you on attempted murder, girl.
Right.
Because she was sweeting it up. Like she wanted him to drink his coffee, right? She's in her towel. She probably just gave him some. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna go get your coffee. You know what I mean? Maniacal. Ben, any thoughts on this?
That's great. Just crazy stuff, man. I just think check six always. You got to check six. You think you know someone? No, you don't. You don't. You got to be really careful. Oh my God. I mean, there's not much more to say on it. It's a
Protect your
little bit
neck, young
insane,
man.
right? A
Yeah.
little bit insane.
It's those army benefits, man, all those military benefits.
Sometimes it be your own people, you know?
Yep.
Literally worth killing for, apparently.
Right. Who knew? Who knew?
Right. I've never seen somebody be so motivated for TRICARE in my entire life. Like you guys know how hard it is to get a VA appointment. I can't.
I want
Jeez.
to I want to do an episode where we all just talk about the dumbest things we saw in the military, because I think people would absolutely be floored.
I can go into one right now. Oh my
A
God.
7-hour episode is making nobody excited,
Yeah,
Jake. That's like a
right.
7-part series.
Marathon live episode.
Floored.
Yeah, that's not. We got to figure out a better. We got to figure out a better platform for
I'll
that
tell
one.
you a quick one right now, Jake.
Let's hear it.
I got towed off a freaking cliff in the middle of the night. I'm not kidding you. Team came out. Humvee died. We're like chasing after these tanks, right? And like following and tracing these tanks. Humvee dies. Call the contact team. They come over, and this is like one of those little ad hoc things. It was for an exercise out in 29 Palms. They hitch us up. Now, mistake number one. Probably shouldn't have been in the towed vehicle, but they're like, yeah, we need you in there to steer it and all that. So we stay in there. They're driving on nods. And all of a sudden, like, we're going. And I just see like a roller coaster. The Humvee in front of me disappears. And all of a sudden it was like, what? They went off a cliff. And it was like a 2-foot cliff. We smash in, roll. And so the driver with me, young dude, he starts freaking out. He's like, ah. I go, we're not on fire. It's not a movie. We're not going to explode. I go, you okay? We had our seatbelts on, so we're okay. Thank God.
Oh my goodness.
And so, and the Humvee, held up, luckily, but we get out and I'm like, you didn't see the cliff? He's like, no, I saw it. He said, no, I saw it. Okay. And I said, now, mind you, this guy with him, okay, there's a staff NCO with him who's very stoic, like literally doesn't say anything ever, barely said a word. And I said, you saw it. Like, I'm trying to get in his head, this young Marine's head. I'm like, he's like, yeah, but Staff Sergeant didn't say nothing. So I just, this is the power of the Marine Corps, people.
I'm just going to drive straight. I'm just going to drive straight. And I don't care if there's a cliff in the way.
I looked at him. Staff Sergeant didn't say nothing. So I kept on going. He wanted me to keep going. So he kept going. I'm like, he didn't say anything. Does he ever say anything? Like, what are you thinking? So anyway, that was one of the dumbest things I'd ever heard. That was probably my first year in the Marine Corps too.
Oh man. I was going to defend this kid because driving under nods is tough. Like, unless you do it, like, it's very easy to drive into gullies. Like, it's super simple to be bad at it. I'll tell you that much. I was going to defend it by saying how hard the skill was, but then I heard his reasoning and I'm not going to defend him. That was the dumbest thing.
IR lights. He had IR lights on, right? So
you guys weren't even blacked out.
No, it was blackout to visible eye, but under nods, sure. He had something. So, but anyway, when that happened, then I was like, God, I love these people. This is some crazy.
What a great life, man!
I'm staying in for life.
where else in your life can you accidentally drive a truck off of a cliff, and that's like a joke? Like, that happens. Like, we just tell that story to laugh about people like almost dying. Be like, oh man, but then
all the time. We're just lucky because we buckled up. So
I mean, 100%. Yeah. What happened? Oh, a Class A mishap. It was hilarious. Let me tell you the story. Like, that was just an average Tuesday. Like, you were just doing that.
Unbelievable.
That's why Ben loves the Marine Corps. If I was like, if I was your shoes, Ben, after witnessing that, I'm be like, I'm getting out. Like, there's no way I can trust.
Jay,
I was going to transfer over the Army. They wouldn't take me. Like, you're already
Jay, let's be honest. That dude's in the Marine Corps. They eating super crayons and markers. Like, that's a minimal on the list of funny things he got. He politically correct. He don't want to drop nothing. Mine's not necessarily politically correct, so I'm not going to say it.
I want to give the shout out to the chat real quick. So what's up? I've been following the chat over there. It's awesome. For reference, somebody called out the Princess Bride reference and said that it was 40 years old. It's not 40 years old. It's 37 years old. And that's what I was doing while we were talking about this. So there you go. Thanks,
nice.
chat.
Keep it going, chat. We love you. All right. So going into the next story, which this one's going to Jake because it's a Navy story, right? So about 2 weeks ago, I read an article about the Navy pretty much dropping their standards. Now, I don't know what it is for the other branches, and you guys can speak to this, but in the Army, if you fail 2 consecutive APFTs, right, for records, because you have your diagnostic where we test you and see where you're at as far as physical problems goes. If you fail a diagnostic, you get your counseling statement, we give you some time to fix it, and then we do a APFT for record. Your APFT for record, it goes on your record, right? It goes on your NCOR, like it follows you around, like it's on paper as, hey, this is how this guy perform. If you fail that APFT, you get another counseling statement, and then you get retested, within 3 to 6 months. And if you fail that one, then it's grounds for the commander to chapter you, to kick you out of the military for not meeting standards, right? So as far as I know, it's been like that for every single one of the branches. But recently here, the Navy changed that policy, stating that, hey, if a sailor fails 2 consecutive APFTs, it's up to the commander's discretion if they're going to get separated, right? Which, if you have a fat ass commander, or if you have a commander that doesn't, oblige by physical standards, then all you're doing is just creating an environment where guys can just be out of shape and get away with it, right? That's why you have it written on paper. It's black and white. These are the standards. You will follow this regardless of who you are, right? Whether you're a commander, a regular sailor, like, you will follow all of these rules, right? It's in stone. Taking that away and making it subjective just breeds weakness. What are you guys' thoughts as far as the Navy doing this? Jake, we'll start with you and then make our way around.
All right, Jay. So I'm gonna talk about the brass tacks. Cats join the Navy so they don't have to put a ruck on and they don't have to go to 4 a.m. PT. All right. And I'm gonna give you one of my first PFTs in the actual Navy on board the USS Merrimack, the worst ship in the Navy. So first PST I ran. And so the women's standard's different, but it's a mile and a half. Half of the ship was speed walking it. They all passed. Okay. So I was like, man, I'm running, I'm dying. I've been on the ship. You don't get to work out on the ship, Jay. There ain't you don't get no 30 minutes of exercise time on a ship. It just don't happen. And God help you on a submarine. You ain't never exercising on a submarine. Okay. You're working 18 hours a day, no exercise. You're eating, sleeping, and working. So the second PST I went to, I'm like, oh, you can swim it. So all the fat dudes was talking about, dude, swim it, man, swim it. So I'm like, all right, man. So MM1, 5'11", 300, maybe 315. Okay. Huge belly. Like, I'm talking about, like, portly, happy ass, could make anything. All right. So MM1, we're walking over to the pool, Norfolk Pierside, like half-mile walk to swimming pool. He got a little towel and shit. And I'm like, man. So we get in, and I think you can swim at any stroke. So it's a 500-yard swim, and my time was 14 minutes. I swam it in like 8:45, right? I was like, oh my God, that was easy, right? MM1 is on his back doing elementary backstroke. I'm not lying to you, like this. His belly was out of the water at least this much. I looked over and was like, oh my God. And every time he got to the wall, he checked his watch. He's like, I'm ahead of schedule. And he'd take a break and he would go back. His time, I think, because he was like over 36, E6, his time was like 16 minutes for a 500-yard swim. He did an elementary backstroke. He finished with like 30 seconds to pass. I think there was a push-up and a sit-up requirement. But back then, all you had to do was have your arms in the front and just touch your knees. And so all he did was he just sat there like this and touched his knees and did his little sit-ups. And he did his 20 push-ups and he passed the PT test. So my point is, Jay, I really don't care if there's a PT test in the Navy, because I know this, the dudes in the SEAL teams, they do physical work. They're going to pass their test. The guys flying planes all stay in shape. The guys that need physical fitness to win the war are staying in shape. The fat bastard that runs in CIC that pushes the button to launch the Tomahawk cruise missile, at aerobic capacity ain't helping him push that button no better, right? Like, them dudes on the ship cooking all that food, They don't need to be in shape to cook that food. Like, so
Yeah.
it's just a different game, Jay. Just a different game.
Yeah, man, those ships are technological marvels. I mean, that's then, I understand totally what Jake is saying. But the plus side is that you can use him for a raft if, the ship goes down.
Oh, yeah.
You just get up on him with him. He's very buoyant. There's no problem, especially in saltwater, right?
He
Yeah,
big boy
man.
now. MM1 was a
We're
big
really-
boy.
We're really trying to find a silver lining. Here's some facts for you. 2023 report from the American Security Project has 21.6% of active duty service members were obese in 2022, which is double the rate of 10.4 in 2012. That means 68% of active duty service members are either overweight or obese. Which branch do y'all think is winning the fattest service?
Air Force.
You were correct, and that's hurtful. 18% of the Air Force.
Wow.
Senate way too
How
fat.
about
Marine
like those
Corps only
big-
8.3%.
How about those big chow halls though, downrange? Like, for
So good, dude. Hey
and
man,
but-
you'll never catch me like bemoaning the Air Forces for creature comforts. Like it was the
Oh,
best
right.
part, man. Like and it was like a joke, but it really wasn't a joke. Like we would laugh at you idiots sleeping in big open bays as we go to our hotel and we have a nice dinner on the way. You know what I mean? Like grow
Very
up, Peter Pan.
Yeah. Hate the Air Force.
Yeah,
because
but
of that.
there you go.
You would see
There
some
you go.
kids in human suits there though, in some of those KBR chow halls downrange. You'd be like, they're never leaving the wire. They're in there and just growing and
Man,
growing.
you're just eating 4 meals a day, baby. Like when you wake up to go
Balkans.
eat mid rats and you don't even need to. Come on, dog. What are you doing? What are we doing right now?
All right. We got to talk about mid-rats real quick. Okay, so
Hell
on
yeah.
a ship, mid-rats is probably the best meal, right?
It's the best meal everywhere. You can
And-
get breakfast, you can get dinner. There's a short line,
Man.
like the short line cook. You go over, you get like maybe a cheeseburger, maybe you want a 12 egg omelet today. Just give me the egg whites, lady. Let's go. Come on.
Man, so on a ship, like you get up to go to the bathroom, you look at your watch, it'd be like 12, and the mid-rats is open for like 45 minutes on our little ship. And you'd be like, oh man. And you would fight it. You'd be like, I can't go, man. I can't put my pants right now. I can't go to mid-rats. I gotta go. Oh God. And
You
I
think
try
that
to go
top
back to
button
sleep.
unbuttoned.
Yeah, bro. That like you get fat on the ship, man. That's what happens. Like you
I don't know.
can't.
Jake, sorry, man, I cut you
Go
off.
ahead. Go ahead.
All right, I'm gonna keep cutting. You guys have ever been to that chow hall in where's it, in Qatar? So coming in and out of theater, if you're doing like some individual or small team stuff coming in and out, that place is madness, just like that. But it's like mid-rats 24/7, because
Right.
it's hot. Everybody's on different cycles, but I remember coming in and out of there, just as you're saying, it's such a massive chow hall, all this stuff. But you'd see some big critters running around. You'd see some very big critters, and they know they're on their little TDY or whatever, out there.
Mhm.
They're like, I got 6 months to get as big as possible. And they definitely would. It was interesting.
Djibouti was like that too. Did you ever go to the main chow hall over in Hoa?
No.
Oh, dude, it is mad. I mean, it's been so I went there really early in my career, and then my last deployment was to somewhere in Africa. We went through Djibouti a couple times, like we went up and back. But it's huge. It's so built up. I mean, there's like hard dorms everywhere and multiple soccer fields and a huge indoor gym. Like it was a tent gym and some random other like whatever. They have a huge like CrossFit facility. Like it's just so it's crazy the amount there. But the chow hall there, ridiculous. I mean, there's like you'll see kids in that chow hall because like the French people that are actually stationed there, they get stationed there for like 2 years. Their families come with them, and like some of them, like the ambassadors and stuff. It's the weirdest thing to be like deployed and then walk into a chow hall and see a child. You're like, what is that thing doing here? Because that doesn't make it like when you deploy, you never see little kids, like especially like American little kids.
Right.
But to see little kids running around, you're like, what is happening? You shouldn't be here. But like, oh yeah, it's a little bit different. But that chow hall. Get out of here. Surf and turf on Saturday nights. I mean, like legit lobster and steak. Just fantastic. No wonder they're fat. Nobody's leaving base. You're going to 11 degrees.
Contractor, I'm going back.
See, I think if you're fat and out of weight, they should keep you from wearing the uniform because it just looks.
It does, yeah. You should
Especially
have to wear.
If you're going to wear it off post, and
Yeah.
people are seeing them, you're like, "What the fuck is that guy?"
I think the Space Force should have to wear those robes like they do in Star Trek, like just floor length. Like that would really hide all the fatness that's going on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there's talking about like enforcing the standards. It brings up a story. This isn't a direct story, but a friend of mine told me that he had a fat commander, right? And so, like you were saying, it kind of spreads. It's like fear, right? Fear spreads to people. Fatness spreads to people too.
So fat is contagious.
They're lifting
man,
the standard. They're like,
we break news here.
the rising tide lifts all boats, and so
That
the
doesn't
rising
apply.
Travis was lifting all boats in this unit, and my friend was livid, right? He's like, dude, fucking, he won't enforce the standards, and because he's fat too, and so. At one point, I guess he gave like a big all hands talk and was like, "Look, we got a problem in this unit. You guys are overweight." And he's like busting out of his stuff. And anyway, so he got dealt with. I think they went above his head, and like the next level up came down. See, I'm kind of being very vague, so I don't dime anyone out. But next level up came down, who was like a rail thin runner, hardcore to the bone, and like basically just like assassinated him. Shortly thereafter. So
Nice.
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes
Yeah,
sense.
we've been dealing with that too. Like there's a kerfluffle in the Air Force right now, and a couple of the communities. Like everybody's like, oh yeah, you like the guy that put the memo out looks like okay in his uniform. His vice, like the dude that works in his office every day. I will find a picture and I will find a way to share the screen, or I'll send it to Jay and he can put it in here. But absolutely disgusting. Like double chin, like falling out over the top of his service dress in his official photo. And you're like, oh, so the airmen need to go work out. I got it. The E5 that's been working 12 on, 12 off on maintenance shifts forever. Oh, those dudes need to go work out because okay, got it. Yeah, thanks for the memo, my dude. Come on, man. Like, what are we talking about?
And the Marines would be brutal and ruthless if any, leadership was like out of shape, not
Yeah.
towing the standard. Like, there's no excuse. People be like, "Oh, I don't have time to work out." Yeah,
A
you do.
general, the AFSOC general, the guy that just turned it over. Okay, so I'm going to say, like, here's what happened with this guy. Hey Ben, you're an officer. Let's say that you were an officer and you're in charge of a command, and a year and a half early, with no explanation, they removed you from that command to put you as the head of the academy, the service academy. Was that a promotion?
Ooh, wait, say it one more time. Tell me one more
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah. So
That
I'll
confused
answer.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to academy, it's a promotion.
It's a promotion. Are you
It's a
sure?
promotion.
It's such a
100%.
political position. Yeah. I mean, it's
100%.
high vis. But no, tell me again though, where was he
Kind
before?
He was the AFSOC commander. So a guy, Tony Bauernfeind, so the AFSOC commander, 3-star, was unceremoniously removed after Slife was the AFSOC commander. He was unceremoniously removed like a year and a half beforehand. Scuttlebutt, as if Fenton over at SOCOM was like, "Hey man, you gotta clean the house up," and he didn't. And then he was removed very early. And everybody's like, "Wow, that kind of sounds like you fired him." And they're like, "No, no, no, totally didn't fire him. We just want to make sure that he's the USAFA superintendent." And you're like, wait a second. Is that a promotion? Like
No,
I
they
thought when
take you away from command. Like, I don't know, because it's especially
Yeah.
if it's like a KD position and now you're at the schoolhouse, it's definitely a demotion. Because I've seen it happen, especially at third group. We
I
had
think
this sergeant major that was sleeping with like his driver, like group sergeant major sleeping with his fucking PFC driver,
tale old as
and
time. Too close
they
to the sun, Icarus.
yeah they removed them from group headquarters and sent them to swim G to be a fucking sergeant major, like the med course, like the medical portion. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, at least in that perspective, it was
I'm
a
saying
demotion.
I'm
Yeah.
saying it feels like that. I'm
Yeah.
saying
I mean, I
AFSOC has
think
been having problems, and then Bauernfeind is the guy that removed dive school for the combat controllers. He's a lightning rod for a bunch of bad stories, and then magically they're like, okay, well you're gone, and everybody's like, that kind of feels like you got fired. They're like, no, 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 totally didn't get fired, and everybody's like, are you sure though?
3-star?
3-star.
3-star.
Well,
I
and
mean, I think that getting him in, but at the academy, it's such a political position. Like, it's they may have said like, this is just a better fit. He's better at this. Maybe his
well,
time.
an initial reporting saying that he's not. The cadets are just blowing up.
Oh.
They're just, I guess he's like walking around. Like there's a bunch of weird rules. Like if you've never been to the academies, the service academies, there's a bunch of like weird, kind of unwritten rules. Like you have to walk on the specific part of the terrazzo, and you have to wear specific things outside, and all kinds of other stuff. He just went in. You know how as a commander you go in, 6 months, you kind of hide and watch. You see the culture, and you go from there. He didn't do that. He didn't wait 6 minutes. He just started flipping tables. He was like, "We have a problem with standards and accountability." You know what his nickname is? Fat Tony. You know why? Because he's fat. I'm not joking. That is his nickname, is Fat Tony. And to Jake, I'll turn it over to you in a second. The other crazy thing that makes us think like this is not supposed to happen. There was a 1-star who was promotable, so he had it, like he was approved for his star. He just hadn't put it on yet. They actually gave him another star, so he was a 2-star that they made into a 3-star to take over AFSOC, and that's who the commander is now.
Well,
so you're telling me
this
this planned political move, this promotion, they didn't have anybody to backfill him. They had to make him a 3-star.
The only thing I would say too is that they may have seen his rising and he's a rising star, and they're like, all right, this guy, it's time for him to move. And again, if they cut his command short, that's never a good sign. But I think, but also if they have a rising star that they know has long legs and can go even further, maybe to 4 star, I mean, they did that with General Dunford. I think he skipped a star from 1 to 3 and
Mhm.
they put him in charge of one MEF, I think, Marine Expeditionary Force. And then he became everything, right? Chairman, all that stuff. So later on. But I've seen that, and that's super rare in the Marine Corps. I think it's only happened one other time. So maybe they're just making room. They're like, okay, he's hit his peak. He's not performing the best way we want him to, but he's not fireable. There's not for cause or anything. So let's say, hey, guess what? We got this deal. You go over here, right? And
Right.
we're gonna bring this guy who's the superstar, and let him ride. So that could be it too.
And
I hate you for making me think about other possibilities. I
Except if
just
he's
like
fat though.
I
If
like
he's
being
fat, then
right in my own
I
head.
mean, I don't know.
hang
That's
on,
his.
I'm
Hey,
gonna
I'm
give you.
just saying that's his nickname. That is his
I'm,
actual nickname
Oh,
is
okay.
Fat
Okay.
Tony. Yeah.
I'm gonna give you one more, Aaron, and this comes directly from our schoolhouse, the Naval Academy. So right now at the Naval Academy, the commandant is Walt Allman, Navy SEAL Dev Group dude, awesome dude, 97 grad, and the superintendent is the wife of the 3-star Navy SEAL admiral. She's an admiral also. Okay. And they are taking a turn on the Naval Academy right now. And the reason is for the last, call it 15 years, there's been stuff like you get 3 strikes and honor violations. This generation, we talked about this last time, this generation is so entitled and so crappy at communications that they have a massive problem at the Naval Academy trying to make leaders out of turd burglars. And so it's not hard. Like the standards got relaxed, a whole bunch of stuff happened. And they're like, you know what? We're going to turn the heat right back up. And I'm not saying they got to go back to the 70s when they're beating the shit out of people, but like this
Right.
generation, I just had a conversation with a dude in a huge position of power in college athletics. And the conversation was, I it is impossible to lead this generation because they are so entitled. It's almost impossible to get them to understand that you have to work as a team to be successful.
I have one thing just to co-sign on that. So I have a very good friend. He's a very high level MMA coach. He would come in and he would teach combatives with us in the morning at the PJ schoolhouse. And I looked at him one day. I was like, "Hey, coach, you like he coaches world champions." I was like, "What are you doing in here?" He's like, "You know how much I love coming in here. Everybody that is he's like, your guys are early, they're hydrated, they're warmed up when I walk in, they want to train." He was like, "I don't have anybody like that in the gym." And I was like, "Oh, hold on. What do you mean?" He was like, "These young kids," he was like, "I can barely get them off their phone to come into train. They show up late. They got no excuse. They were just playing PlayStation. These people are world champions." And
Wow.
because it's just the younger generation. He's like, "I love coming in here." He's like, "They respect." He's like, "I open my mouth and start talking, and everybody in here shuts up." He was like, I don't get that in my gym. That's crazy." So I mean, I agree. I think you're right, Jay. That was a great exposition.
Yeah.
I mean, one last thing I'll say, just kind of dovetailing off that. I once got working with this. Got a chance to work with this quarterback coach. Gosh, he played with like Bart Starr back in the day, older coach, and he'd coached in the Packers across the league. Older guy, NFL quarterback. And I was like, so why are you doing like all this like coaching, these camps and all these things like that? And he's like, you know what? He said, I don't want to go and, go up there and work with this superstar who's making, 20 million a year. And I tell him to do it my way. And he's like, no, I'm doing it my way just because he has so much magic and natural crazy talent. He's doing it wrong. And in the percentages, he's going to make us lose. But the staff's going to listen to him. He's going to have every word. He's going to be like, and he's going to talk against me. So he said, just what you're saying, they're so entitled that they don't understand the team, they don't understand being coachable, and that's not everybody. I'm just saying this, this is a case of I've heard this as well too, at the higher levels where, he goes, I come here with the high school and early college kids because they're hungry, and the ones who are at these camps, they actually want to get better. They're not, super entitled under contract, know that they can basically say, get rid of me and I'll have to go, so he's like, it's just, how can you coach when when the guy you're coaching could just fire you and say, get out of here, because you can't tell them anything they don't want to hear. So that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, before we hit the next question, I'll ask you guys this one first because this one is, I think a lot of people watching can benefit from this. So this one is along the lines of setbacks, right? We talked about how the 3-star got removed and put at the academy as a commander of that. As it relates to you guys in your careers, what's one setback you guys had that was really hard for you guys to get over, and how did you guys navigate that? And I can start while you guys think about that one, right? So for me, I remember being a young E6, and I was a brand new guy to the group, right? So at the time, I was going through my first divorce, and I was downrange. So we had 2 months left on that deployment, 2010-ish time frame, and at that time, my ex-wife was back here for Bragg, and I'm 26. So I was like, yeah, you want a divorce? Whatever. Like I can figure it out, right? So I was very nonchalant about it. Like, yep, you want to go live your life? I want to go live my life, whatever. We don't have any kids. We can split everything 50-50. And that set her off because he was like, oh, she was expecting more of a reaction, right? Like, I'm 26 SF guy. I'm in shape. I'm like, I can figure this shit out, right? So she started going to my command, like command saw major up a group and, you know, the colonel up a group, and news was getting to my team sergeant downrange. So I was like, fuck, like that's never a good thing. Like once that starts happening, it just makes you look bad as a dude, you know, to your teammates. I'm like, fuck, what the hell's going on? So I got with my team sergeant. I was like, hey, this is going on back home. You know about it. Like I need to go back home and take care of this because I don't want my reputation, you know, to be that, you know, like I'm one of those dudes that, you know, his wife is going to group and spreading all these rumors. So the team sergeant's like, yep, no problem, man. Good to go. So I fly back home, you know, I check in the group and I'm taking care of all of this shit, right? So now my team sergeant, he didn't relay like the message to the rest of the team. He didn't really let them know what was going on. He told them I was coming back and all this jazz. But long story short, the team, they ended up resenting me because of it, because they saw it as me abandoning them downrange and coming to the States and hanging out and all that shit. They didn't really know what I was doing. So when the team got back, you know, I pretty much got like ostracized, right? It's like, yeah, you were, you know, back here in the States, you know, doing X, Y, and Z while, you know, we were down here. Like they just didn't get it. So because of that, I ended up being removed from that team, my first team. So that was my first setback that I've ever experienced a group. And for me, as a, you know, brand new guy, I thought that was the end of it, right? I was like, oh, fuck, like my SF career is over. And it took me seeking out some mentors for them to kind of lay it out for me. They're like, dude, you've been in group for like 2.5 years. You know, you're, you know, 8 years in the Army. Like you can bounce back from this, right? Just go to the B team, be a good dude, work, and then eventually another team will pick you up. And that's exactly what happened. But at the moment, I couldn't see it. It was fucking, you know, heartbreaking because it was like, oh, these are my dudes. I've been with them for like 2.5 years. And then just like that, it all ended. And it took somebody, you know, mentoring me and sitting down with me to make me realize that it's not the end of it. You can bounce back from it. You just got to stay focused, stay mentally tough, and then just keep pushing, and eventually things will work out. Right. So that was my experience with it. Ben, if you don't mind, we'll start with you since you're a resident
I mean,
expert when it comes to this stuff.
shoot, I mean, probably one of the biggest setbacks I've experienced was in college football. I think you know, you work your ass off, all super talented guys, you know, that you're playing with. You walk in the locker room, everyone's all state, all American, all these different things. And so you know, you're hustling the whole time to play. And, you know, by the time I started getting some playing time, all of a sudden I had a career-ending injury, neck injury, you know, playing linebacker. And it was, you know, football was my life for so long. And it honestly, like, it took my identity. It just was crushing, you know. So I think the big thing for anybody listening out there, you know, is watching this later, is that you go through a grieving process, you know, even later leaving the military, you go through a grieving process, a loss of identity, a loss of community, all these things. But especially as a player, it was just it was everything. And so I had to rebuild. I lost my physical strength. That, you know, I couldn't really use my left arm because of nerve damage and things like that. So I had to go through a long journey of rehabbing, rehabilitating. And I almost left the Naval Academy and almost almost came over, you know, just left and enlisted, and was just wanted to get after it, you know. But luckily my coach is like, look, stay on, stay with us, stay with the team. and I want you to coach your senior year. And so I stayed with the team and I coached linebackers with him my senior year and just rebuilt myself. But I think the thing is too, is you've got to focus on what's next. You can't focus on what's been lost. That's the biggest thing. And in that grieving process, you're going to be at first shocked, and then you're going to be angry, right? And then you're going to go through probably some depression until you finally accept where you're at, and then move forward. I mean, that's just how the process works, and it takes different times for different people. Whether you lose a loved one, whether you lose your identity, as I'm talking about with this setback, and I've had many other setbacks as well too, but this is the one that kind of pops in my mind, because as a young guy who was, 21 at the time, and just started living my dream basically, because you're grinding, hustling. Jake knows. Jake was out there. We were out there together, and grinding, hustling. All of a sudden, it's just one play, boom, and you never see it coming. They always talk about it. Coaches always tell you. It's just the same thing when you're out in operations, right? You have, maybe you get hit and survive, or maybe just blow your knee out because you're carrying all this gear, or you have a bad jump or something like that, and it's done, and everything's taken away. And so I think just preserving your core, making plans for the future, rebuilding, and focusing on what's next is the most important thing. And I just, that's what I did. I focused on healing, getting strong enough to, luckily got strong enough and healed enough over the next 18 months that I could actually go in, commission into the Marine Corps. And I had to get, all these MRIs done and all these things like that. Luckily, I didn't have to get fusion surgery. The doctor told me if I took another hit like that, I'd be a quadriplegic. So didn't want that. And so, Dr. McDevitt, Jake knows, sat me down and said, I can't let you play anymore. I was freaking devastated. I just couldn't even believe it. You know what I mean? So I had to come full circle, and I said, well, I want to do something, but it gave me such a fierce drive to do other things, because I had this unfinished business. It's like not that satisfied still to this day. And even, but I will say the being in the Marines, and then getting to go into Force Recon, to MARSOC, and all those things, in the infantry too. But the brotherhood and the team, and the operations, the missions, that was very familiar territory for me, and I sought that. I needed that. So there are other things out there. That's the biggest thing to remember, is that there are other ways to fulfill this need. It's just because that one avenue and pathway is taken from you, you can always find another way to fulfill that deeper need. So whenever you want something, you really got to look at, why do I want this thing? What's the deeper level down, maybe 2 levels down, for why you want that thing? And then you can really succeed at anything, because you have multiple options for success. So just keep that in mind.
Ben, Jake.
I can see how you got those two guys confused.
Hey, the whole time, Benny, I was laughing because I'm waiting for there was a little midget in front of me running around. So, inside joke, folks. Real quick. So the thing that pops in my head is getting fired as an assistant platoon commander, SEAL Team 8 on deployment. I get fired by the biggest turd burglar in the SEAL teams. And the difference between me and you, Jay, I knew about mentorship, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand how important it was. I understood you needed it to go places, but I didn't understand how to functionally use it. So I got fired. It was a big buildup. It was like a 1.5 year buildup all through the workout. I had tried to get out of the platoon. Like, my platoon commander had been fired 3 times at SDV Team 1. Like, he's just a bad dude. He's a Naval Academy kid. He's really rich from Boston. It was never his fault. And he lied a lot. And everybody knew he lied. And this is pre 9/11, right? So liars and shitty officers didn't necessarily get thrown away back then, and it was gross. It was gross. Like, I spent 2.5 years killing it at SEAL Team 8 to get in a platoon with a loser, and he did everything he could to get me fired, and he got me fired. But then I basically gave everybody the bullets to shoot holes in me because I imploded. I filed a big ass grievance, right? One of the dumbest things you can do in Special Forces is file a grievance. There's never been a successful investigation in Special Forces, not one. Okay. And, but if I had mentorship, and this is the thing I tell my young guys now, if someone would have told me these 2 things, Jake, you're the only Black officer in the SEAL teams for 11 year groups, 11. So 88 to 99, you're the only officer in that time span. Okay. That means you're pretty much bulletproof. All right. Second thing is, if he's as bad as you say he is, you're going to come out of the platoon and the platoon is just going to fall apart. And when it falls apart, they're going to look at you and be like, well, you weren't the problem. And they're going to look at him and be like, he was the problem. And that's exactly what happened, right? So if I hadn't filed the grievance and I had just shut my mouth and did like you did, Jay, right? Like just go back to the B team, be a good soldier, be the dude I had been the whole time I was in the SEAL teams, this shit would have corrected itself in 4 months. So 4 months later, they came back from deployment, they pulled his trident, they kicked him out of the SEAL teams. And my chief called me, he's like, damn, Jake, if you hadn't filed the grievance, you would have been good, right? And it was just one of those things. I went through so I tell people, the reason I got out of the military, because Thanksgiving of that year, I went home for Christmas right before we went on deployment. And my two best friends were like, you got to get out, Jake. And I was like, why? They're like, you're getting ready to start shooting people. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, you're angry and you're never an angry person. Like you're a happy person most of the time and you're angry. Like I know what's going on in your platoon. Like you're getting ready. And one of my dudes was in the Army. He's like, you're getting ready to start shooting people. And it kind of changed the way I thought about it, right? Like I wasn't going to shoot nobody, but I was definitely angry. I was reading every Black Power book and knowing the fucking man, Malcolm X, E.D. Du Bois. But you can't help yourself when you're in that situation. It's just not possible. You have to seek outside counsel through mentorship, or you're not going to make sound decisions. And I went through everything Ben said. At first, I was mad as hell, filed a grievance. Then I had 5 months before I got out of the Navy. I was on leave for 5 months. Okay. And so I was super depressed. Like I was working out and I was just like, man, but I was going to Michigan for business school. And then I finally just accepted it. I'm getting out of the Navy. They wanted to medically retire me. I made another bad decision. I gave them the middle finger. I just walked away. I didn't want medical retirement, which was stupid. And then next thing you know, I'm driving across country. I end up in California. I see some people I know. I get back. I spend 6 weeks in Washington. I'm happy as shit, right? I got a little college babe. Everything was killer. I go to business school and then 9/11 happens and it goes all right back in the tank, right? Like 9/11, I get the call to come back and I'm just like, man, I can't do it, right? But if I had sought guidance at the very beginning and had somebody kind of lay it out, hey, here's what it looks like. Because you need that wisdom in front of you, right? Like I've talked. This is a great story. Let me tell this one. This will bring it home. So I had a young kid at SEAL teams. Okay. He wasn't a SEAL though. He's a SEAL intelligence officer, but he's a fucking banger, like a banger. Okay. And so he's murdering it, goes on his first deployment and he has a bunch of action. Okay. He's in the stack. He's rolling like he's a dude. He just didn't go to buds. Okay. So they get back and they have a big award ceremony after deployment. He didn't get no awards. He didn't get no combat action ribbon. He didn't get shit. And I was like, so he called me. He's mad, right? Like he was Jake Zwig, 98 or 2001. I'm going to burn the place down. I'm going to file a grievance. Hey, hold up, homeboy. Let me tell you how this plays out. Okay. I said, you're not a SEAL. You're going to get a combat action ribbon. You're probably going to get a post award. I said, you're just an intel officer and you're banging. Okay. I said, but what they're not going to do is give the intel officer more fucking street cred than they do a whole, 3 platoons of SEALs at SEAL Team 2. They're not going to do that. I said, so you're going to pump your brakes. You're going to wait and see what happens, but I guarantee you it's going to end up okay. And he was like, nah, we had a conversation and he was like, all right, I got it. But like a simple conversation of like, hey man, let me paint a picture for what's going to look like down the road. 6 months later, he calls me Friday. All award ceremonies in the teams are on Fridays because then they go drink. And he calls me. He's screaming. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I got combat action. I got a comm with a V or whatever. And I was like, you good now? He's like, fuck, man. And then he had an awesome career. Like he's fixing to do the same thing I did, burn it in. But he had mentorship, he had guidance, he had somebody that had been there, he had somebody that had seen it, he had somebody that knew the lay of the land, unlike he could ever know as an O2 in the Navy, as an intel officer in a SEAL team, right? So I tell that story because I think it's really important for everybody to understand You have to have mentorship. I call it the 5, 10, and 20 plan. You need a guy 5 years ahead of you. You need a guy 10 years ahead of you. You need a guy 20 years ahead of you. Like, and the guy 20 years ahead of you and 10 years ahead of you can get you out of problems. Like, you get in trouble, they can make some phone calls and maneuver. And the guy 5 years ahead of you really guides you in what you should be doing and how to do it better than you could possibly come up with your own solutions. So
Dang, I don't even have anything after that. I'm a work in progress. Like all of my darkest days are happening as you guys see them in real time. So I'm just a case study and going through it. We'll just leave it there. I got too many failures, man. I got too much stuff to bring up from the past to even hit that one out. But
Yeah.
I'll just echo what you guys said, man. It's important just to realize like these things happen on a very long timeline. When you start having like serious issues with your day-to-day stuff, man, step back. The timeline for these things is really long. It's never going to be as good as you think it is initially. It's also never going to be as bad as it is when you think, and this is I'm speaking, from an experience of the worst things that you can imagine happening in your life. As you step back and as that timeline zooms out a little bit, you'll notice that you have more time to deal with these things, both good and bad. And nothing is so acute that you get lost in the day-to-day of it. So don't get lost in the weeds, and you just got to grind. Wake up, make your bed, go to the gym, drink your water. You'd be surprised how much of your life will fall into place after you do that.
That's a great
Yeah.
point. That's such a great point. Then one last thing I'll say is, don't wait until the event happens. Like, don't wait till bang to get help. Like, make sure you have someone you can talk to now. Build that into your life now. Because like Jake is saying, and Aaron's saying, we're all talking about that. If you have someone you can talk to now, or something that's a positive force in your life, someone that can balance you and give you a good sound decision that yes, maybe you should take action, or no, let's let it develop a little more. But you got to have someone to talk it through with, because even you producing the words and strategizing, creating options, it'll illuminate, it'll come into your face, and you'll see more clearly what is really the right course of action. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. Awesome advice, guys. And to Jake's point, I remember when it happened to me, like I was going to burn it down because I came from big army. So I knew a lot of admin stuff that, my team sergeant didn't, right? Because he tried to pull some other stuff, and I was like, well, show me the documents, right? And I was ready to go file a grievance because what he did was wrong. And then my mentor sat me down. He was like, all right, bet, let's talk this through. The company sergeant major used to be on a dive team with your team sergeant. The battalion sergeant major knows your team sergeant, and they drink beer together. Go all the way up to group, and that guy was a junior with your team sergeant. So he's like, you could you don't want to burn these bridges, because if you do, your career is going to stop here. And that was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, because had I did, yeah, I would have gotten what I wanted, but my career would have been over before it even started. So good point on that one, Jake. With that said, guys, we'll transition into our last story, and then we'll hit some political stuff with Ron, right? So this one revolves around the PACT Act. It was a piece of legislature passed in 2022 that is forcing a lot of veterans to pay back their separation pay. So at least 79,000 vets are required to pay 30 or so $1,000 that they were given to separate from the military. This was between 2013 to 2020. And because of this, a lot of vets are reporting that they have fallen on hard times, right? And apparently you cannot receive both disability and separation pay at the same time. So let's say the Army's paying me to get out because of whatever issue, right? So there's like, hey, here's $30,000, you can go retire. Now, if I go file disability before I get disability, they're requiring that I pay that $30,000 back because it was a fuck up on their part, right? So this news broke last week. I read it and I thought it was pretty jacked up, but a lot of guys are being made to pay this back. Hearing this, Aaron, like, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's just like the most classic military story of all time. You know what I mean? Like the military, if they'll overpay you, they're going to take everything back all at once. If you overpay them in some way, they will take forever to pay you back, and like you have to fight for that paycheck. It's just a thing that's and it's woven into the culture. I said it all the time when I was in, but I've never fought so hard with an employer to just pay me what I deserve and don't screw it up. But it seems like it always happens. So this doesn't make sense to me. On top, I try to read through the reasoning behind why they wouldn't be allowed to get disability at the same time that they're getting this money for getting out. And I remember way back in the day, my cousin was actually an officer in the Air Force, and he was one of those dudes that they targeted. They looked at this young second lieutenant and they were like, "Hey, engineering guy, we don't necessarily need you right now." It was called RIF. I can't remember what the
Yep.
acronym RIF
Reduction
stands.
in force.
There you go. Yeah, we actually had too many of him, so they no kidding paid him to get out. He was one of these dudes. Now he wasn't disabled, and I just don't understand the reasoning behind saying, okay, well, you have a disability, especially a service-connected disability. You hurt yourself while you were in, and now you have a disability because of it. Your body doesn't work as well. Why having that disability payment, even, call it, whatever percentage for the sake of the conversation, 100%, 50%, whatever. Why would that disability rating in any way negate you getting out of the military? They paid you to separate because they didn't need you. You parted ways with a contract. You're like, okay, this contract is over. You're giving me $30,000 tight. Our business is done here. The fact that they're now going back, like, I wonder what recourse they even have. Like, we gave you this money. Well, I'm a citizen now, so I don't have the money. Maybe go fuck yourself. Like, I don't know what recourse that they would have in order to put any sort of legal action behind it to recoup that money. I mean, you know what I mean? Like the DOD is wacky, but just from a 30,000 foot, no kidding, just black and white. You were in a contract. That contract was over. You were satisfied because you got $30,000 out of it. You part ways. That's it. I'm sorry. No take backsies.
I think it's going to be really interesting. They're going to start getting hammered legislatively, right? Like they're going to fix this. It's the dumbest thing in the world. Like they're docking, like, so, the article says they're docking his VA disability now to pay the government back.
How? That's untouchable. That's not income. It's not taxable. Like, that's a completely different thing. Like, I know Ben is going to hop in with his different pots of money explanation here, but they just are.
I mean, they tried to get my mom. My mom was on disability from the Air Force, and she got a workman's comp claim, and they paid her both for 1990, so 35 years, 34 years until she died. 2 years ago, they said, "Hey, you're not allowed to get both of those. We need $60,000 back."
No. And
I was just like, and then she died, and they're like, "Well, you owe us $60,000, right, at the estate." And I'm just like, "Well, she don't have no money."
Right.
But it's like for literally, like, they came after something that they had been messing up. And the best part about it, 10 years ago, she went and told them, "I don't think I'm supposed to get both of them," had all the documentation and a letter from the government saying, "No, you're perfectly authorized to get both of these payments." And then fast forward 10 years, and they're like, "Oh, no, we need all that money back." So
tale old as time, baby. You didn't turn my payoff, and now I owe you all at once. I got fun story. When I was a young dude, I was an E5. I was driving across the country on December 14th, and that's the day that I found out that there was a pay that they were going to take from me that I didn't know about. I got a zero paycheck. With 2 toddlers in the car, road tripping from Albuquerque, New Mexico to Washington, D.C., I got a zero paycheck. It was tight.
Yeah. I think if you don't really think it through, which I'm not thinking through, because it really enrages me. Honestly, it enrages me because the fact that they can do this and reach back and it hurts someone after they've gotten out, and that's a lot of money. It's not like they're saying, "Oh, you owe us $300." You know what I mean? $30,000 is a game changer for the vast majority of people in America. And to think that they can just do that, or file, I don't know, a court lien against your wages, or whatever they plan to do. And I believe Jake is right. I believe legislatively, there are going to be so many congressmen blown up for this, and then they're going to have to jump in and do something, because it's just wrong, especially if someone's service connected, disabled. They're dealing with problems on the outside as it is, as we all know, that it's not easy always to find meaningful work, and now you're threatening their livelihood. I mean, honestly, what the hell is wrong with you people? I really want to say that if any of you are listening from there, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is bullshit. So that's got to stop. You got to fix that crap. Get your shit together. Stop taking people's money. That should be untouchable. It's always been untouchable. People's pay in the military and their leave. You don't fuck with that. So this has got to get fixed.
Yeah, and as you guys are speaking about this, I'm looking at the latest article that came out that claims that come October, the VA is going to be $15 billion short. And there's a possibility that checks won't be going out for starting October of fiscal year 2025.
And I'll tell you what, like, and I know it's a cynical take, but when you start looking at these other things that we're spending money on, okay, so we're 15 billion short. We gave 10 times that to Ukraine so far.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How much have we given to Israel? How much have we given for these wars that were proxy wars? How much have we given for gender studies in Pakistan? That answer is 900 million. How, like,
Yep.
building libraries in Egypt it's really not that important. We don't need to spend $1.2 billion on that. So, those questions are going to get asked too. And I think you're right, Jake. I think they're just going to hammer them legislatively. Somebody's going to answer to this in front of Congress, and there's no answer.
Yeah, that's wild. Jake, did you have something?
No, I was just saying, it goes back to, man, hoping that Trump wins. I can't believe we avoided the Kamala Harris conversation.
Oh, no, we're about to get into it now.
No, you didn't. No, you did not,
Look at Jake's
buddy.
eyes. He goes, oh, no.
No, you did not. No, you did not, buddy. I got something special for you, my guy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, we're about to get into it.
Let's go.
And folks in the chat, keep in mind, too, if you have any questions, make sure you post them. And I see Aaron's down there. He's been answering for you guys. But if you have anything else, just leave them in there. With all that said, Aaron, I'll push it over to you so you can handle all the political talks as far as you voting for Kamala Harris and then so on and so forth.
So first of all, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a xenophobe, you're a bigot, and I can't believe the misogyny that I just had to deal with. You're not allowed to talk about Kamala Harris in that way. So hey, we're gonna keep going. We talked about the assassination last time. I'm just gonna give you some updates, right? So after the assassination attempt, obviously everybody was calling for the Secret Service director's head, as well they should have. She was guarding Pepsi before she was guarding the president, and now we know why, because Jill Biden really liked Kim Cheadle and had her installed when the nomination process happened. So she ends up stepping down, right? She goes, hey, turns out this was my fault. If you remember back in the day, and I said this on another one, a previous Secret Service director stepped down because somebody was able to jump a fence with a knife at the White House, right? So you compare these, when the juxtaposition of those two things happen, when she initially was like, no, I'm not stepping down, everybody was like, yeah, you probably should. So she goes up in front of Congress. It was just an absolute dumpster fire of a reaction, of a statement, of what she wanted to do. And then afterwards, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who's also the worst Homeland Security director we've ever had, thanked Cheadle for her service. Mayorkas appointed Deputy Director Ronald Rowe, who was directly involved in this thing as well as the Deputy Director, as acting director. He's worked for the agency for 23 years. So bottom line here, she did terribly and she should have resigned. Ben, when somebody gets up, you operate in these circles, and I know that you have a little bit more insight than us, just because you know these personalities. You can tell the difference between political posturing and actual anger or actual, vitriol towards a specific event. What was your feeling about how everybody was reacting to the Secret Service director? From my optic, everybody wanted her head on a spike right away, and she said no, and that incensed me. That made people like actually angry, and I think that's what led to the resignation. Is she was like, oh, I'm just going to answer these questions, I'll be fine. She gets absolutely flamed and stepped down. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, obviously I think she should have stepped down immediately. It's a total failure. It brings discredit to the institution. I think it also probably makes people question the validity and the credibility, not only of the institution, but the entire process and vetting for putting someone in place. And that's not a good thing because, this whole thing holds together from confidence. It's almost like a financial system too. It's like it all holds together from confidence and people believing in that it's going to work. So I was pretty upset watching her testify before Congress and, what she was saying, the way she was answering questions. It was almost just like you said, like, yeah, I just you guys don't understand. I just got to get past this. The attitude, the body language, everything, it didn't seem really sincere. It seemed kind of like, oh, you're out to get me. No, you failed.
Almost flippant. It was
100%.
Yeah.
100% flippant, not almost 100%.
I agree. That look exactly. That was it. And so I can't remember I believe it was one of the senators really grilling her, but he was speaking what we were all thinking. I think, like, how could this happen? And how can you just act like it's not a big deal? Mm-hmm. I don't know what her background was before Pepsi. I don't know how much time she had in the Secret Service. I don't know any of that stuff. All I know is that, if you're the head coach of the team and the team just lost the big game spectacularly, you're probably on your way out. It's probably time to go, right? And you should probably step down gracefully, mea culpa. I hope we figure it out. Here's what I know. But, you know, again, you're not thinking of the team, of the country when you decide to make this me decision of, you know, I'm staying in place. You know, you're not a politician. You weren't elected by the people, right? So you were appointed. That's when you say it's time to go, right? It's different if your people all back and you say, no, no, stay, we want you, even though this happened. So, you know, maybe that would give her a leg to stand on. But even then, I mean, at leadership at that level, a leader at that level, you have to know better. You have to make better decisions. So that's what I think about it.
And it was the mix of incompetence and arrogance when she was testifying in front of Congress that really made me upset. So she said, hey, we talked to every single Secret Service agent. And I believe it was Jim Jordan was like, oh, okay, cool. How many were there? And she's like, oh, I don't know. Or she,
I don't know. I don't
she,
have,
yeah, she's like, oh, I don't have that information. You're going to have to talk to somebody at the FBI. And then finally, you know, somebody got so exasperated. They were like, okay, who at the FBI do I need to, you just keep saying this like it's this boogeyman, like it's behind this curtain. It's the Wizard of Oz. Who am I supposed to be talking to? Who knows these answers? Jay, as you were texting me, like we were texting, you know, obviously about some other stuff. And you were just like, man, what is going on with this? The problem that I have now is that there's more questions than there are answers. So now, like, again, I've tried to just lean in on incompetence, right? Hanlon's razor, assume incompetence before you assume maliciousness or some dark plot.
Right.
I've seen the theories about more than one shooter. I've seen the audios, I've seen the videos, I've seen the drone, I've seen all of these things. Jay, it feels like there's more questions than answers now. Do you think that this is incompetence? Does it look like there were some, you know, coordinated forces acting in this? What do you feel about the evolution as we've seen it after, what is it, you know, 13 days ago?
Yeah, so in my opinion, there's definitely something fishy going on, right? So yesterday I did a live stream with a gentleman called Veteran Biker. He's a Navy diver, right? We were on this platform and this topic came up, and one of his viewers was actually there. So we sent her the link and she jumped on the podcast. And of course, me being resourceful, I hit her up afterwards, and I'm actually interviewing her hopefully tomorrow. But she sent me some pictures and some videos. She was able to go from the crowd all the way up to the stand, like on the stage. She made her way all the way up to the stage and was sitting within arm's reach of the president. She said that's how uncoordinated and unprofessional the Secret Service was. She got all the way up to like right behind, like she was on stage when the shots got fired. And she sent me videos of her recording the snipers that were on binos for at least 5 or so minutes looking at the shooter. She said
26 minutes before this event.
Yeah.
The South Sniper team reported that they had somebody on that roof, and they started to try to deconflict because they thought there was another sniper team up there, which is the official story. I don't necessarily agree with it, but 26 minutes beforehand, Trump was not on stage yet when they knew that there was a possible threat.
So as I'm listening to her and I'm looking at the video she sent me and the picture, I'm like, I'm not a big fan of coincidences, right? Like we all know, like on the battlefield, you start planning and going off of coincidences and say, yeah, that probably happened. Oh, that Taliban dude just, you know,
he just so happened to be on his phone.
You know what I mean?
It was just a coincidence that he, like at a time that we were going to turn, he pulled his phone up to talk. Just a coincidence.
Yeah,
probably
like,
doesn't mean anything.
Like we don't deal in coincidence.
Yeah, he's got a shovel. Yeah, he's got a shovel. This guy's dirty. You know what I mean? He's probably fine. Yeah. Why is he running away?
Right.
So I don't
moving tactically. It's not running away. Moving tactically.
Right. Yes.
So I don't deal in coincidence, and there was just way too many factors on that day for it to just be a coincidence, right? Like I think there was an elaborate plan in place, and it was executed flawlessly. And you know, and I'm not a big conspiracy guy. I'm just looking at it from a tactical perspective and also a psyop perspective, right? Because I tell you what, everyone's talking about now, incompetence of the Secret Service, you know, the shooter itself. But at no point in time is anybody looking at the fact that, holy shit, there's a fucking third shooter. Why? Because that's what they want you to focus on, right? Like if I was to plan this operation from like a special operation perspective, I would have done it the same way, right? I would have put my shooter out of sight, out of mind, water tower, wherever. I would have put the bait right there You know what I mean? As a professional sniper, I would
They
have.
all suck. They all suck. Whatever, however many they had.
Dude.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah,
so I put on my tricorn hat. I don't have a
yeah,
tinfoil hat. I have a tricorn hat because I'm an independent analyst. But like,
yeah,
listen, man, there's just too many questions. They lead to too
yeah,
many. So it's Occam's razor,
hmm
right? Occam's
yeah,
razor is like you ask the question that leads to the least amount of follow-ons to explain
yeah,
the question, right? People often say it's like horses and zebras. That's not exactly correct. It's what questions can I ask that lead to the least amount of follow-ons? Why would CNN live stream this thing, this specific rally? They had never live streamed a Trump rally before.
hmm
Why did they live stream that one? Why did they pick that one? Why can we look at and ask all these questions and they can't go one deep? Why wasn't a sniper team up there? The roof was too sloped. No, it wasn't. We have pictures of everybody up on top of it. Why were snipers inside the building? They weren't inside the building. Yeah, we have radio traffic that verifies that yes, they were inside the building, and that person climbed up on the roof. Why was there a ladder there? Why was he stopped at a magnetometer with a rangefinder earlier? Why was he visualized walking around looking at the roof an hour and a half beforehand? Why these questions lead to more questions. They don't lead to an answer. And unfortunately, at this point, like everybody that wants to be like, at this point, you have no. If you're an adult male or if you're an adult, human with a functioning brain, you have to look at the situation and go, those are too many coincidences.
yep,
Those are too many explanations of just like, oh, sorry, we just missed it. I'm sorry, that dog ain't gonna hunt. Like
yeah,
it's not conspiratorial. It's not, reaching off into the woo woo to come up with an answer. Like you look at this thing and you go, explain to me how this happened. And the fact that the Secret Service director Kim Cheadle took getting flamed in front of people and basically just getting debased in front of people to even take accountability for it. It can be maddening. Jake, just swing away, buddy. How you feeling?
So here's where I've went just listening to the commentary and the absolute fire you guys are dropping. 9/11, FBI had like 10 report incidences from Arab guys in flight school in Florida not wanting to learn how to land the plane, only worried about taking it off and flying it, right? And we missed one of the biggest terrorist attacks in American history. So I'm looking at this kind of like the same way. It looks really stupid, but it's so stupid that yeah, it can't be this dumb, right?
I just Yeah,
Now
and
that
we have to look at it, and then people want us to go, okay, so we know the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag. We know the USS Liberty was a false flag. We know that we went to Iraq on WMDs that weren't really there. We know that all of these things that happened, we can verify. We know the CIA had a hand in killing Kennedy. We know all of these things, the Bay of Pigs. We know these things that they're all true. And the expectation is like, listen, they've been lying to you and obscuring evidence for literally the entire time that you've been alive, the whole time. Everything that you thought you knew, you don't actually know. But this time we're telling you it's just incompetence. Okay. We don't have a hand in it. It's just, it's weird coinkydink. Like that's just ridiculous.
why is half of the Grand Canyon off limits? Here's the question of the day. Why? Because the Egyptians were in the Grand Canyon 1,000 years before anybody believes that they found America. So there's a bunch of stuff going on. It's the same stuff we talk about all the time. Why do we don't know about the aliens? We don't know about the aliens because they're worried about mass hysteria in the United States. It's all part
I'm
of a
here
bigger
for it.
plan. It's all
Drop
part
all
of
the knowledge, dog.
yeah,
Drop all of it.
it's all part of a bigger plan, right? Like we're trying to control the masses. And this is another attempt, whether it's the Democrats or the CIA or whoever's attempt to control the narrative and try to make sure that Trump, didn't win. And now, we're gonna talk about your girl Kamala.
Here we go.
Like
Let's talk about it.
I thought Kamala, like I'm gonna be honest, I got yelled at by my wife, okay? Because I know some people that know her from college, and there's a very colorful history at Howard University with her. But my wife lit fire to me, so I had to be very tactful about how I talk about Mrs. Kamala. But I will say this: the Democrats are now playing a solid hand by making her the acting president, and so to speak, because now she's meeting with Netanyahu. And I was like, in the last 2 days, I talked about this yesterday. In the last 2 days, she went from a clown to being somebody that looks presidential. Now, the problem you have is she threw it out there. She's going to ban assault weapons and all this other stuff. And my wife, made the statement. I said, I was going to start a revolution. They come to my house for guns. I'm killing them. We're just going to start a revolution. My wife made the statement that you're just waiting for a reason to start a revolution, Jake. It doesn't really matter. So
Whoever says whatever owns their own words on the podcast. So,
I'm
Just
good,
what,
bro. I'm good because I'm in
let's-
Texas, bro. I said it 1,000 times on this podcast. I'm in
yeah.
Texas. The Republic of Texas is gonna be just fine when this shit starts.
So I'm going to lay it out here. Here's how the Kamala Harris thing started, right? So we had Joe Biden stepping down from his from his campaign. He hasn't stepped down from being a president yet, and that's the talk of the town is why is it that you're not fit enough to run for office, but you are fit enough to hold the office? That's a question that we need answered. So Kamala Harris has stepped up to be the presumptive nominee. The Democrats have not actually nominated her yet. They work with a superdelegate sort of system. The problem with this is that they have completely alienated the 14 million voters that voted in the primary for Joe Biden. Those votes are now just gone. The Democrats installed a candidate. This looks like an oligarchy. It does not look like democracy. It looks like a very small group of people. Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Hakeem Jeffries, some others have conspired behind the scenes to install the candidate that they want. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, they didn't initially endorse Kamala Harris as VP. There's a bunch of questions about some campaign financing. Essentially, $86 million. The headline that we're supposed to believe about Kamala Harris is that somehow in less than 24 hours, 880,000 new donors donated to the tune of $91 million. That's not true. $86 million of that was actually transferred from donations to Joe Biden that they did not give back to the donors. The Trump team has actually filed legal suit with the SEC for campaign violations, and the Trump team would know a little bit, but prosecutors are largely uninterested in this. Nobody is picking up steam about just transferring this money. The press is spinning it as if, Kamala raised all this money. She's got a 37% approval rating. She's the least popular VP in the history of the world. She's supposed to be in charge of the border, which the MSM has started calling that misinformation. However, she was in charge of the border. It's on video. We all had the internet when this happened. Joe Biden said, "You're the border czar." Some of these news outlets like PolitiFact, they put out a statement that was like, "Oh, we never said it was they were the border czar." We have your article. Your article called her the border czar and said she was in charge of it. So here we stand. Kamala is going to start pressing down here. Now, how she got to power is ridiculous. She basically had an affair with Willie Green, mayor of San Francisco, got her first 2 political appointments. That's not misogynistic to say. That's what happened. It's on video. He said, I helped her get her first 2 political appointments. She was eventually the attorney general for California, where she had a terrible habit of putting people away for minor offenses while she was committing the offenses that she was putting people away for. She could have exonerated a man on death row. She didn't. She withheld that evidence. That man is dead. She has a terrible record. She is awful. I don't even need to talk about the fact that she is a terrible human to try to watch talk. She can't talk and she cackles like a hen. It's really, really weird and it's terrible. And she's not good at her job, right? But she is untenable to the larger Democratic machine, which is why a whole bunch of people haven't endorsed her. There's still time for somebody to swoop in. She hasn't talked about who's going to be on her ticket. Gavin Newsom is at the top of that list. She was pictured with Pete Buttigieg talking about it, and old Mayor Pete himself. So listen, there's a lot of problems here, right? Ben, when you look at the prospects for Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump that's coming up, does this give you tingles in the back of your neck? There's a lot of conservatives right now. They're like, hey, we got a lot of wins going, we got a lot of momentum. How do you feel with the Democratic National Convention coming up and Kamala probably being the candidate?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we all said before, I think, from strategy wise, I think that the Republicans were hoping that Joe Biden would just stay in place. But I mean, realistically, they all knew he wouldn't. We all saw that first debate and there's something wrong, clearly wrong. And time after time again, there were videos of him beforehand. So, I say he did the right thing, meaning they all did the right thing for their strategy, for everything. But I don't think I don't, everyone keeps saying, well, she's a prosecutor against someone who's a convicted felon. I'm like, you haven't gotten on stage against him yet. Just wait. This is an experienced man.
Right.
It's been he's a genetic politician. He's a fantastic speaker. You know what I mean? Like he loves being in front of the crowd on stage. I think he's going to destroy her. She's going to go from a playbook. There are no rules of court where you have to sit and be quiet.
No.
It's just, he's so experienced. And I think she's going to do her best, obviously, but I just think he has so much more experience in this whole thing. And what else are you going to say about him? What are you going to do? He's battle hard.
And that's
ready to go. He's
yeah.
got a huge push of support behind him now. He's got people that almost have like a religious belief, not almost, they do have like a religious fervor and belief about his, candidacy and about being the president, all these things. I think it's gonna be very hard to defeat him. I believe I'm right saying that he's pretty far ahead in the polls right now for the most part.
He's not. It's he's 3 points down.
Oh,
Kamala
really?
in polling is 3 points up right here. Yeah.
Oh,
So
is that recent, like today, or
yeah.
is that okay?
Today?
Wow.
Yes, in the last 2 days.
But I still think that I think he's gonna beat her. I just, that's just my opinion. Again, I'm pretty independent in these things, so I just call it like I see it, and that's how I feel. I mean, again, the misinformation that you're saying that they are trying to say that she raised 90 million in one day. Again, that what you presented is new information, but it makes sense in seeing, that they're going after them for for campaign violations and funding violations, all those things. That makes more sense than just this sudden groundswell of 90 million in one day.
It
So
just does, yeah. And when you start asking those questions deeper, like, oh, okay, like the fact that they said through Act Blue, they're just laundering money through Act Blue. It's plainly apparent. But
okay.
the fact that they would have the audacity to be like, oh no, 880,000 people of the most unpopular president. She got 0 votes in the primary. She had to drop out of her race before she even got to her state of California in the presidential race. Like, people forgot she ran a campaign into the ground. She was polling at -%. Like, how do you even do that, right? Like, that was her previous experience here. So, Jake, as you look at Harris and Trump head to head, and we know kind of, the hyperbole attached around this just got ratcheted up, right? Like, we keep talking about turning the temperature down in politics. Well, now, it feels even more like, holy crap, this person is not qualified. This person was straight up a DEI hire. Joe Biden, by the way, Kamala Harris called Joe Biden a rapist to his face, she called him a sexual assaulter to his face before she was his VP. That's in the primaries. It's hilarious. But now to see the turn of, Kamala Harris taking this over and seeing what she's about, she was voted the most liberal senator by, the organization that basically ranks liberal and conservative. She was the most liberal senator, I think, in 2022. How do you feel with a looming Harris presidency?
So I'm just gonna, I mean, if she wins, get ready.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna tell you, she's gonna try her best to ban guns. And I'll go back to like was it the 80s, late 80s, mid 90s? Somebody got in office and put a assault weapons ban. You couldn't buy assault weapons, you couldn't buy ammo.
1984.
Yeah,
Assault weapons ban,
yeah, you got Obama did it the covert way. He just bought all the ammunition. You couldn't buy any more ammunition. He used the Federal Ammunition Act and acquired all the ammunition. I think they're going to play shenanigans, and I don't think it's best for the country. But I went from laughing at people about the presidency race to now I think it's going to be shenanigans, and we're going to see what happens. Especially when you look at the fact that how the states vote, because there's like 7 or 8 states that kind of determine the presidency. Biden was losing New York. New York is as blue as it gets. Well, I guarantee you, Kamala ain't losing New York now. You know what I'm saying? So, like, that's
really?
a big.
I don't think Kamala's that popular in New York, bro. I think New York is a battleground state right now, especially the polling. I'll tell you what, man, it's close. Like, there's a lot of those states that are moving.
Don't forget that state voted AOC into office.
Yeah, you're right.
And you got the power in New York City. You got the power of the boroughs. And you got AOC. You got, like, it's just, I think it's too easy to be like, oh, she's a black female. She went to Howard University. She doesn't speak very well. I think it's too easy to throw all that stuff at her. Because I'm going to tell you, in the last 2 days, you watch her, she looks like a president. And I think that's the best role that the Democrats are playing right now, is they've put her in a position to be the acting president per se, right? Like to play the role. And because I watched her yesterday and I was like, damn, there's a big transformation. Now, I got told yesterday there's no way she's going to be able to bite her tongue long enough to succeed, these last 3 months. She's going to say something stupid, and it's gonna start a forest fire, right?
Oh,
like,
the gaps are coming.
Wait till they get on stage. Wait till they get on stage.
Yeah, and I agree with Ben immensely.
Hillary Clinton was a formidable opponent. I mean, a shoo-in, honestly. And
until that debate.
Yeah, he blew the thing up, and people are like, oh, damn, like,
So a good question from the chat from good Kofefe, which I love. What's the rundown on Vance, referring to the Trump VP picks? Don't know much about him. Here's the cut sheet on JD Vance. So Kamala Harris was in for everything that she wanted and probably way over her head when she agreed to a debate with JD Vance. JD Vance is an Ohio guy. He graduated from the Ohio State University in 2 years, ended up getting a law degree. He went to Harvard Law. 2001 happened. He enlists. He goes in the Marines. He goes and fights on a couple deployments, comes back home, starts a business, a very successful business. And at 39 years of age, 37 years of age, he gets into Congress. He's 39 now. So at 37, he gets in 2023, early 2023. The guy is an absolute firebrand. He is ideologically sound. He is a very hardline conservative, and he does not give a shit about pissing anybody off. He is, now listen, of course, people are going to dig in and find out that he's funded by AIPAC. Somebody's going to find out that he has some sort of superpower that's behind him. I got it. I'm not saying he's the cleanest guy, and I don't know if he is. He's a politician. I assume that he's some level of dirty because they all are. I will say as a pick, as a VP pick for Trump, this is the guy that you let off the leash and he just absolutely flames because he's too good at it. He's young. He's got a smart team around him. He is too good on his feet. You cannot trip him up. He is an actual lawyer and an actual bulldog. And that guy, he's probably one of the smartest people in Congress, period. His book, Hillbilly Elegy, they're going to reprint it. It actually turned into a Netflix documentary where he talked about the working class. He is going to be able to break down that blue wall. You talk about Ohio, Michigan, West Virginia. You talk about those states right there. Trump doesn't need any help. He's got them locked down. So when you start talking about going on attack on these other states, that's going to be a very interesting pick. So that's the rundown on Vance just real quickly. And we're going to transition.
You know what's interesting about real quick, I'll jump in. It's just that, that he flipped. He transferred over. I mean, he was an anti-Trumper and,
he was a never Trumper. Yeah, that's a great.
Trumper. The same thing, I think that's probably one of the most impressive endorsements to me is that, this is a man who's principled by all accounts from what we see. And so, him to come over is very powerful. And I know some hardcore Democrats actually that really like him, which is, says a lot. So,
well, two things about JD Vance. Number one, the never Trumper thing, called Trump, cultural heroin, I think was the quote from one of the books that he wrote. But, for him to evolve and then for Trump to meet him in the middle too. So now we're looking at this presidential Trump that's bringing people in from a wide tent, people that didn't like him because he thinks he's best. Like it's just great. That's a fantastic pick, both by Trump and by Vance, is that they would both, kind of meet in the middle on those things. So it's not without bumps in the road. Acting President Kamala Harris right now had to deal with her first real little hullabaloo yesterday. So the White House condemned some pro-Hamas agitators in D.C. as disgraceful. Basically, what happened was an insurrection. Remember when those guys walked calmly through the Capitol and they shut down Congress stuff, and then they all got put in jail in solitary confinement for a year, and then they were never given their due process and their constitutional rights were violated, and then they were charged with something the Supreme Court ended up overturning and saying that they should never been able to be charged with. Well, that should have happened yesterday, but it's not. People just do not seem to care that Hamas activists were burning American flags on the steps of the Capitol, that they were defacing the Liberty Bell. Jay, it feels like it's hypocrisy, but is it hierarchy? Why are we not going after these people the same way that for the exact same thing that those conservatives did? It's almost like this only goes one way.
Yeah, I feel like as it relates to that specific topic, it's pretty much allowed, right? Because if you think about it, we have a police force, we have individuals down there walking around DC that can easily put a stop to that. But the fact that they did nothing and they stood by as those guys burned the flag and deface all these monuments, they had to get permission to do it, man. And if any of us were out there and we were to intervene, because we know what the flag stands for, especially for us and our brothers in arms that's lost their lives, we would probably get thrown in jail, right? How is it okay for them to burn the American flag, yet if any one of us burn a fucking rainbow flag, that's being seen as
directly in jail. Hate crime.
Hate
right
crime.
To jail. Straight to jail.
Yeah. So I seriously think it's allowed, man. And that's the precedent that's been set. And that just lets everybody know that it's fucking free game, essentially, to do that type of work.
I'll just say, just balancing things out. I don't know how violent the demonstration was. I don't know what the level of activity was, how many people. I don't know what type of property damage occurred, things like that. So, I mean, people burn flags all the time. It happens all over the place. You know what I mean? So, why they're not being prosecuted, I really don't know. I don't know all the facts of it, but yeah.
Let me provide you some facts. Let's see if this helps you out.
I know you know them.
Hundreds of pro-Hamas protesters gathered in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, where they were seen lighting American flags on fire, scrawling graffiti outside of Union Station, and chanting Allahu Akbar. Agitators at Union Station, which is located near the U.S. Capitol, burned an American flag, vandalized a statue with the words, "Hamas is coming." They also removed American flags and replaced them with Palestinian flags instead. How does that make you feel?
Not so good.
Not so good. That feels bad.
I'm going to give you a different angle.
Here we go.
we're fucking sitting there sending all these bombs over there, killing their people, and we're supposed to be America, the melting pot of the world. I'm not gonna say I don't have a problem with them doing it, but I'm not necessarily super upset about it because we're sending all the bombs over there. We just leveled Gaza, like we leveled it,
Right.
and I'm not gonna say Israel leveled it. We leveled it. We gave them all the ammunition. We gave them all the funding. We gave them all the like. Part of me is like, man, go ahead, get yours, man. Now they bring some bullshit over here and start killing people.
That's different.
Then,
Yeah.
then, then we're gonna have to have a problem,
Yeah.
right? But right now, if they want to protest and they want to, right Hamas, like I've been, and I'm Jewish. I mean, I throw that out there. I'm fucking Jewish, and I've been saying that whole situation, it has so far went over the tipping point into absolute absurdity that if you're an American and you want to protest against America supporting Hamas or Israel over Hamas, I think that's your right.
So where does that right end? So it's okay to shout death to America, Allahu Akbar, like that is not incitement to violence?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I sit on the fence, bro, because
I'm a free speech
like,
absolutist, man. Like you're not going to find somebody that will take away somebody's right to protest. I think your actions have consequences, though, and I think that there is a line where it's incitement. It is a violent. I mean, it was a mostly peaceful but fiery protest. Like, what are we calling this?
So let me ask you this, Aaron. What about them tree huggers chaining themselves to trees and shit, or to roadways in California? Right? Can we go?
Mm-hmm.
Can we go ask them dudes? Because I think
as a private citizen or as a government entity,
just in general, right? Like
the
BLM movement.
Jake's got a good point though too. You have to have some natural off gas points, some ways for people to demonstrate. And I know we say peacefully, but I mean it can get very crazy. They can be yelling, screaming, burning things, doing all those things like that. When we start getting into property damage and violence and hurting people, harming people, that's where we cross the threshold. Definitely. Now it's very uncomfortable for most of us to be near those things. But I think in order to keep also a democracy together, you have to allow some venting of some of these sentiments. If you don't have that ability to vent, then that is when you get revolution. Like even with what happened at the Capitol, all that. When you look at the broader perspective of history and of other countries, that place would have been burned to the ground. If we were going towards revolution and there would have been
if it would have been the left, it would have been burned to the ground because the right doesn't do it.
Right. But you know what I mean? I'm saying like yes, violence happened. Yes, people died. Terrible. All bad.
One person died. Ashley Babbitt. She was one of the protesters shot by a Capitol policeman. That was the only person that died in that entire thing.
Oh, I thought a Capitol police officer died later.
Brian Sicknick. No, he died days later to something that was not related to the Capitol riots. Yeah. Well, but that's the lie that you'll get.
And you pulling back strategically and you look at that compared to other places, other points in history. Again, you have to have the ability to let the people vent and say what's important to them, because otherwise then you will start an insurgency, because if they have to go underground because you're repressing them so much, there will be an insurgency where then you start, like the IRA, you start having bombing campaigns, protracted assassinations, all these things, because they can't do what has been done. And so that's one of the big balancing acts for strategic leaders in our country, is that, how much violence and damage you let them do. I mean, I know like in Rome, Italy, when the black bloc people like that come through, they're destroying entire city blocks more than we'd seen anywhere else. And this is in, beautiful areas in Rome. But
London is on fire right now.
Yeah,
London is absolutely on fire. It's not getting reported.
We have to let them go for a bit and it's going to peter out. We can't just start murdering everybody, because then we're going to turn the entire population against us. So it's a huge, huge balancing act. And I think cooler heads have to prevail and strategic thinking has to prevail. And you have to look at the greater trends and what's really going on and causing this. So that's just
I think Ben makes an amazing point. I'd rather have them protesting where I can video all their faces and start figuring out are they real or not, than sending them all underground. Like we all know there's cells in America. I've been saying it. Al Qaeda is stupid for blowing up the World Trade Centers. All they had to do was go turn our power off. They could have inflicted so much more damage, right? And so they're here, but I'd rather have them protesting where I could see them than going underground, man. That's the real truth.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to end on this one. You would think. So the president went on last night at 8:15 to give an address to the nation. It's his first address since he announced on Twitter via some weird PDF document that he didn't actually sign that he wasn't going to be in the campaign anymore. We had one question, sir, why are you stepping down? He never answered that question. To link it to the Hamas story that we just talked about, he also didn't mention any of the violence that was going on outside of there. Now, a very interesting picture has popped up of his watch during this time because the internet is a thing and people are sleuths. His watch reads 6:10. Do you know what that leads me to believe? It leads me to believe that that was pre-recorded. He didn't know the Hamas stuff was going on outside his own door, and that he did not do the best that he could have done to assuage the Americans' fears. So, with that as the little diving board, I want to ask y'all, what are you excited for this week in politics? Is there some sort of scenario that would make you excited? Because right now it feels a little bit wonky. It feels like we're getting lied to. So, Jay, I'll start with you. What are you excited about in the news this week? You got a hot take that you think can never come true, but you're positive that it is because we live in a clown show of a world?
Yeah, this is unprecedented times that we live in. I don't think politics has ever been so excited, at least for me, as it is right now. Between claims of it being a AI generated speech. There's a lot of photos circulating stating that Joe Biden grew like a couple of inches overnight. You know what I mean?
Joe Rogan, on Joe Rogan's podcast, they ran his phone call into the Kamala Harris speech. By the way, Kamala almost called it, hey, thanks, you're on a recording. The phone. That's no kidding what happened. But they ran it through an AI, like to tell if it's AI, 98% that it's AI. That means it was AI.
Yeah.
Just like, I'm sorry, like that's what happened. They did it live on Joe Rogan. They were like, hey, analyze this for me. Tell me if it's an AI generated recording. And the AI generated recording catcher was like, yep, 98%.
Yeah, there's just to your point, Aaron. So I wrote a book and I used ChatGPT to like edit it and all that stuff. And then I ran it through the AI thing and it picked all that shit up. So that's definitely a thing, right?
100%.
But I don't know, man. It's just exciting. And I think the fact that we're here talking about it, if we're talking about it, more than likely the rest of the population is talking about it also, about how we're being deceived. And it's not even a good magic trick, right? It's like, look at this hand. It's actually, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, there's like no effort is being put into it.
I'm not a toddler. I can tell. I can see both of your hands, you know? Ben, what are you looking forward to this week, Ben? Do you have any hope for a good thing? Maybe you're always bringing a positive and a silver lining to my dark cloud. So what are you looking forward to in the next news cycle?
I mean, honestly, I'm focusing on just like I always say on moving my own ball forward down the field and focusing on things I can control because I think that's the most important thing. We can all get spun up and you can lose a lot of energy, just have stray voltage everywhere. But the biggest thing is you need to focus on the things that are most important for you, focus on what you can control. Think critically, think about the things you see and you read and you hear, access multiple sources. Definitely listen to this show and this podcast as much as possible because this is where you're going to get the greatest information. But I really think you have to think critically all the time with what we're seeing out there today and hear many voices, read many sources. Don't just, scroll through social media for your information. By all means, do it, but then get second and third sources to corroborate whatever you're seeing because there is a lot of stuff going on. There are a lot of developments in AI and everything we're saying. And at the end of the day, again, the thing that I hope for is that we have a free and fair election. I mean, I know that's being pie in the sky, but I'm saying that I hope that we have, to the best of our ability, we execute this process and the people get to choose what they want and whatever it is at the end of it. So I'm just hoping that we can proceed forward.
Bring it home, Jake.
All right, folks, I'm going to be really selfish on this one. I'm almost done with my house rehab. I'm really excited. All the countertops are in. The sink went in yesterday. I got to do a bunch of plumbing today and tomorrow. And I got a house I got to go pick up a bunch of paint at. And it's another opportunity for me to put my kids to work for like 3 hours. So politics is what it is, but I'm fired up because I'm almost done with this baton death march of a year house rehab. And I was just thinking about it. Like, I don't care about anything else. I'm just going to get my house done and move in.
Fantastic. Feels like a good place to wrap up politics. I'll turn it over, Jay.
I just want to say real quick, I got a great lift today. I'm really looking forward to that. That's what I'm really looking forward to.
Nice. Let's go. Let's go.
All right. So we got Mason in the chat and he wants some MK from Jake, right? He gave Jake $5 just so he
Okay.
Aaron,
Hilarious.
did you see any other questions in the chat that we might have missed?
I did. So we were kind of talking to him, some great comments. Gap Mage, man, thanks so much. Yeah, you were totally right. The TV comedians that Joe Biden was back in the 90s, people just absolutely just did like killed him. Kamala's the same. So it's just great input. Like everybody in the comments is super smart. So, thanks a whole lot. I think we answered all the ones. There were some random crow questions that I just threw answers to, but nothing we needed to address. Really, the comments it's just a bunch of smart people. We have the smartest people on the internet that follow us and force us to step our game up. So I just want to say thanks. You guys are awesome.
All right, awesome. And again, guys, I appreciate all the donation that you guys gave us on the chat also. So I appreciate you guys for doing all of that. But yeah, folks, so the intent again is to try to live stream for you guys every week. Between the four of us, whoever could make it will be here. And we just want to start this routine to, not only bring you guys the latest and greatest as far as military news, but also just help you guys become better individuals through our experience by uplifting you guys. So again, we appreciate you guys spending this time with us. Keep on keeping on. Enjoy the politics just like we are. You know what I mean? If you guys have anything for us, leave it in the comment section below once we end the live stream. And we'll see you guys next week.
Like, thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, live stream
Dang,
is done.
I love how Jake's like, I'm out of here. Fuck you guys.